So apparently, this developer does.
It's so late! Oh no! It's so late!
God, you look so pretty when you tell me that you love me. I wish that I could lie, but my was all this.
Make me your Aphrodite, make me your one.
Better bomb, better bomb, better bomb, better with the drugs, better with the big love, but the gun in my brain gon' bang on, better with the drama. Gotta grieve for my mama, cause I don't think I'ma live too much longer. My better bomb, better bomb, better with the drugs, better with the big love, but the
Most people think they're close to a knife after opening 100 cases. They're not. Here are the actual odds coming straight from Valve. Mil-spec skins, the blue ones, got about an 80% chance. Restricted, which are the purples, have around a 16% chance. The pinks, aka classifieds, have around a 3.2% chance. The coverts, aka the reds, have a 0.64% chance, aka a 1 in 156. And the knife or gloves have a 0.26% chance, aka a 1 in 385. That means, on average, you need to open around 385 cases to get one knife or pair of gloves. But here's the important part. These are just probabilities. I've known people that have opened thousands of cases and not hit one pair of gloves or knife. On the flip side, I've known people who have opened their first case ever and boom, there it is. Big rare special item just for them. Crazy. Would you still open cases?
Did you know in Endless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically complete opposites in terms of their age to appearance ratio, with Remiel being certified hag status while looking like a 20-something beauty, and Sigrid being an Uma means that realistically her age is probably about 3. What's that? It's a totally different series, and that's not even really how that actually works. And she's supposed to be about 28, so she looks pretty accurate. Well, to be fair, the relative distance between them doesn't change much, so I'm still right. Subscribe. Did you know in Endless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically complete opposites in terms of their age to appearance ratio, with Remiel being certified hag status while looking like a 20-something beauty, and Sigrid being an Uma means that realistically her age is probably about 3. What's that? It's a totally different series, and that's not even really how that actually works. And she's supposed to be about 28, so she looks pretty accurate. Well, to be fair, the relative distance between them doesn't change much, so I'm still right. Subscribe. Did you know in Endless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically complete opposites in terms of their age to appearance ratio, with Remiel being certified hag status while looking like a 20-something beauty, and Sigrid being an Uma means that realistically her age is probably about 3. What's that? It's a totally different series, and that's not even really how that actually works. And she's supposed to be about 28, so she looks pretty accurate. Well, to be fair, the relative distance between them doesn't change much, so I'm still right. Subscribe. Did you know in Zenless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically complete opposites in terms of their age to appearance ratio, with Remiel being certified hag status while looking like a 20-something beauty, and Sigrid being an Uma means that realistically her age is probably about 3. What's that? It's a totally different series, and that's not even really how that actually works. And she's supposed to be about 28, so she looks pretty accurate. Well, to be fair, the relative distance between them doesn't change much, so I'm still right. Subscribe. Did you know in Zenless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically complete opposites in terms of their age to appearance ratio, with Remiel being certified hag status while looking like a 20-something beauty, and Sigrid being an Uma means that realistically her age is probably about 3. What's that? It's a totally different series, and that's not even really how that actually works. And she's supposed to be about 28, so she looks pretty accurate. Well, to be fair, the relative distance between them doesn't change much, so I'm still right. Subscribe. Did you know in Zenless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically complete opposites in terms of their age to appearance ratio, with Remiel being certified hag status while looking like a 20-something beauty, and Sigrid being an Uma means that realistically her age is probably about 3. What's that? It's a totally different series, and that's not even really how that actually works. And she's supposed to be about 28, so she looks pretty accurate. Well, to be fair, the relative distance between them doesn't change much, so I'm still right. Subscribe. Did you know in Zenless Zone Zero, the 3.1 characters, Remiel and Sigrid, are basically
We are the children of water, born of the goddess. You filthy creatures, faithless, soulless, unclean. This world was never yours to keep. How dare you stand in the way of purity, little king?
The Lego scandal is going federal. We're going to talk about today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. And I've been covering this bricks and minifigs scandal, the Lego scandal, really from the beginning. And we have a new massive turn here today as the case appears to be heading from state court to federal court.
This was easily predictable. You could have easily assumed it would go to federal court. And the reason why I would have assumed it went to federal court is very simply because they're doing it with people across different states. I mean, like, duh. And like, this is being done internationally. The video is being broadcast internationally. This was inevitable.
First of all, some background here. On June 26, Ben, that is Reckless Ben, and Victor Wynn filed a notice of removal in the U.S. District Court for Utah. That is the federal court. So essentially, that is the one that covers all of Utah. There's one district in Utah, so it's not like Florida where there's several districts, like a north and the south district. There's just one for Utah. So they filed it in that district and said, hey, we want to remove this to federal court. Now, BAM Bricks and Minifigs has 30 days to fight this motion. And while this is going on, there are also ongoing mediation. So the mediation is ongoing, that discussion is ongoing, and that has been ongoing since the state court RICO case was filed by Bricks and Minifigs Corporate against Reckless Ben. So they're allowed to keep talking. They're allowed to keep going through the motions of trying to settle this outside of court, and that's very, very important. But what's also important is this message. Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could
I don't see how you can sue Meta for making an addictive, how can you even win? I'm surprised that you even won this lawsuit.
Contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for the case.
Hey,
you may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000. All right, so let's get into this federal removal. So this just came down. Obviously, you see in this post here, the lawyers for Ben Schneider, his company, and Victor Wynn have filed a notice of removal in the district court, saying here, generally this freezes all proceedings until the federal judge decides whether they will take jurisdiction or remand the case. So this is accurate. So essentially, they're going to need to decide what to do now with this removal. So now that they're saying, hey, we want to remove this to federal court, the judge now has to say, okay, is this permissible? Is this not permissible? Are we going to allow that? So what are some of the facts that lead us to this being something they can do? Well, if you look over here, Victor Wynn is a resident of California. Brian Mansell, who agreed to this and consented.
That's the reason why it's going to federal right there.
Which is very, very important here, is a resident of Oregon. So there's diversity of citizenship between the plaintiffs and defendants. Diversity means they're not from the same place. They're not all from Utah. This is not a case where everybody is in Utah. They're all Utahians. Sorry, people from Utah. I probably said that wrong. But you see, that's the primary reason, and that's a very good reason to remove this to federal court. And there are several advantages that do come along with that. We'll read some other reasoning here. Plaintiff Baker Bricks, LLC, alleges in the complaint that it is a Utah corporation. A corporation shall be deemed to be a citizen of every state and foreign state by which it has been incorporated, and the state or foreign state which has a principal place of business. Baker Bricks, LLC's principal place is Utah, and its certification of organization is filed in Utah. Plaintiffs allege at the verified complaint that Baker is a Utah limited liability company. Taking this is true, which we will assume that's true. I don't think they're going to fight that they're a Utah company. The actual plaintiff entity in this lawsuit is Baker, the Utah LLC, not the now dissolved Oregon entity whose trade name Baker is using. Salem Baker Bricks itself was administratively dissolved on January 15th.
This is just like bullshit.
Filed. In addition, the members of Baker Bricks LLC appear to be Brandon Best and Josh Johnson, who are citizens of Utah, and it's shown in the application for reinstatement they filed. So they're saying, hey, look, these guys, this corporation is really a Utah corporation, but we're going to try to get diversity here. And this is a massive advantage for Ben for multiple reasons. First of all, there's stronger First Amendment and anti-SLAPP protection. So First Amendment free speech, that's going to be very strong at the federal level. And all those anti-SLAPP motions, that's a SLAPP motion is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. So anti-SLAPP is essentially protecting free speech, saying, hey, you can't.
A lot of people file lawsuits in order to chill speech to make sure that nobody else is able to discuss a topic that they don't want to have go out into the public. So there's a lot of different protocols that exist in order to effectively kill that before it even goes to the courts at all.
Try to silence Ben with a lawsuit.
It's very, very
strategic
common.
lawsuit to silence Ben. So Utah's anti-SLAPP laws will apply in federal court, and there'll also be very strong First Amendment protections there. There also will be a better shot at dismissing or weakening RICO cases. Now, federal judges are very familiar with RICO. They are well versed in their RICO claims. So going into federal court with judges that know RICO might give them a better shot of dismissing it, particularly as they argue, Ben argues, this is really a cobbled together case based on,
it's bullshit. I mean, a RICO case is for like a fucking gang. It's for a cartel. It's not for a guy making a YouTube channel that made a video trying to get people to give Legos back. I mean, it's such a complete misunderstanding intentionally that I don't even know how you can do it. Really, it's crazy.
Facts based on things that aren't true. So weakening and dismissing the RICO claims might be something that would be more advantageous at the federal level. Also, it proceeds as a neutral forum. So federal courts are often perceived as more fair because of their procedures, because of the judges. It's not.
And I think this is another thing, because like if the Mormon Mafia thing is true at all, which like I don't even really know if it is, but theoretically, if it was true, that means that it would probably be the strongest in Utah because there are the most Mormons in Utah. So logically, if you had it in federal court, you're effectively diluting that advantage. It is. I just don't want to. Like, I have a hard time. Like, I try to do this, whether it's Muslims, Mormons, those Jews that are in New York that like are just like Amish people. I try not to assign group guilt. I do. I try not to do it. But sometimes it's true. But I try not to begin there. Okay.
Going to be somebody who's perceived as a local judge who might be beneficial to the local Utah business against the foreign Californians and other people from other states. Yeah. It's going to be a perceived area where the procedure, the judges are used to people from other jurisdictions or used to people from other states, and therefore it's somewhere that is perceived as more fair. And generally, I would say federal courts are very, very fair when dealing with diversity cases. Also, they would get a chance at a fresh review of the TRO. Now, we're going to go into the temporary restraining order and what happened with that on a separate video. So make sure
it's crazy. It is crazy to me that they had a gag order issued on a person who literally does news. They literally produce media and news, and they had a gag order when the context of the conversation conversation was around fraud. Like, that is a fucking ridiculous, like, what a total exploit. Oh my God. Zach's amazed by gag orders. Not all gag orders, just some gag orders, okay?
This video, you're subscribed, because that's going to be a whole separate video where we talk about the TRO. But they're going to get another bite of the apple if they go to federal court. They're going to get a chance to look at that and tell the federal judge, hey, we think this is, this is crowding our First Amendment right. This is taking away our First Amendment rights. And a federal judge might be willing to say, you know what, even though this was a win for Ben, because I do think Ben is still winning when it comes to TRO, I think he would be able to win harder in federal court.
Yes.
Also, in terms of strategic leverage and settlement and procedure, all of that is going to be more fair. And also the leverage, the visibility, the power that Ben has, that's going to be increased by moving into federal court versus state court. So Ben is going to be in a better situation in that mediation, in the negotiations with Bricks and Minifigs, in order to come to a reasonable settlement with them. So let's go to my judgment. So in judgment, I think it's an excellent tactical move by Ben's team. I think this was very wise for them to do, to try to move this.
I think it was too, because like if the courts, like this is the problem that I have, right? Is that if you have such systemic corruption that you have like guys on the phone with the police officers trying to invent charges, the police officers are deleting footage and they're muting it at like a base level so you can't even unmute it, which is like, I think it's illegal, right? I'm not sure if it is. Like you're dealing with, you don't know how deep the corruption is. So the first thing that I would say is let's not step into the hole at all.
To federal court. So big up on Ben's lawyers. I think they're doing an excellent job so far. And this is something that will change the game if they're able to get it into federal court. And it'll be perceived as more fair procedurally and will also protect Ben's speech. I think his First Amendment rights will be best protected in federal court.
Yes,
I'm not saying that
there are some court systems that are more favorable, and Andrew knows this better than I do, so maybe I'm correcting something and I'm actually wrong. But my understanding is that there are some court systems, especially Texas and Florida, that are even more favorable towards freedom of speech than the federal courts. But as a standard, the federal courts trend on the more favorable side.
Amendment goes away in state court. That's not at all the case. But I do think that federal judges are very careful about the First Amendment. So they might be even more on Ben's side when it comes down to the rulings. And that's what I think a lot of people are looking at is, hey, how are we going to protect his freedom of speech and his ability to make videos and make content? Now, this is not a win for Ben. Ben doesn't automatically win because it goes to federal court. However, it does
it's a better chain of events for him that's more favorable.
Massively increase his leverage. And I think Bricks and Minifigs is now pushed even deeper into a position to sell. So Bricks and Minifigs keeps taking L's. They keep pushed back and back and back on their position. And I think Bricks and Minifigs didn't want to settle with Ben. I think that they wanted to kind of fight this out. But the more that he's fighting back with these procedural moves, like moving to federal court, the better position he's in, and I think they can.
It's very obvious that Reckless Ben is extremely intelligent. It's obvious that he's very, very intelligent, and because like with all the different like systematic advantages that he used, I think that they really fucked up by trying to do this.
To a better settlement when they eventually get there, which
is
what
reckless,
I think this will come down to in the end. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Out of curiosity, would you do a charity stream where you build a Lego set if they lose the case? I'd be willing to do something to help them out. Yeah, sure, I definitely would. I don't know what exactly that would be or anything, but yeah, theoretically, I'd be willing to do that. Let me link you guys a video. And yeah, Pricks and Mini Dicks, what a piece of shit, man. What an absolute piece of shit, stealing that guy's stuff and everything. Oh my God, they don't have a choice. It's either surrender their years of fraud and theft or keep doubling down. Well, I think that both places, both sides are pushed into a position that is kind of a rock and a hard place.
Whoa, this is for me? Are you sure? You're too kind.
Thanks. I'm so sorry. I mean, I don't know what to say. I'll keep it and treasure it for a long, long time.
The games were not made for me. Oh boy.
How many times have you guys heard the line, this game wasn't made for you? How many times have you seen people running to the defense of a game and saying that, well, if you don't like it, stop talking about it? You know, they go and they start posting those memes where it's, you know, stop having fun, but they're still sitting on the couch playing the game. You know, this game is great as long as you don't have anybody screaming in your ear telling you that it's bad.
This is like those subreddits that ban anybody who's critical of the game because they're so coping, because they spent $60 on a game that's a piece of shit. This is exactly
Stop seeking out negative commentary and criticism on a game if you just want to have your viewpoint reinforced. Stop hitting yourself. That's what you're doing at this point. I recently saw that somebody posted an entire Reddit thread talking about me in my video on Avowed, saying that I am the one that's ruining commentary around games. I am destroying.
He's one of the only ones that provides fair commentary about it. Like, I've seen a bunch of the other videos about Avowed, and like, I'm sorry, but some of these other, you know, again, I don't like using the term, but some of these other like anti-woke YouTubers, bro, the National Enquirer has more decency than them with thumbnails. Holy shit. And you're gonna compare him to those people?
Video games and the video game community. You guys are helping by watching my videos in the first place. Shame on you. The even-handed criticism that I had in my Avowed video where I was relatively soft on them in comparison to just about any other game or any other studio because there were parts of Avowed that I genuinely like and I like Obsidian as a studio. No. I'm the bad guy.
That's right.
Have you ever
That's the same thing for me. I was the enemy and I gave the game a 7.
It's a good game. It doesn't need anybody to run defense for it. No. It just exists. It's just there.
It speaks for itself.
Thing. So it got me thinking, what are the chances that these communities are the ones that have been ruining games? I've seen so many games come out to seemingly no audience. The quest for the mythical modern audience, where they seem to exist in certain social circles and social media, but the minute that a game hits the market, they evaporate. Ready to go.
They never existed in the first place, and they only put it out there. There's a lot of people who like they want to have the right opinions, but they don't actually care about the video games. I've noticed this with a lot of games, is that people will say that like they're fans of a game. Like I noticed this with Metaphor ReFantazio. There were like 4 or 5 people that I talked to about the game, and they were like, yeah, I really liked it. I'm like, how far did you get? They said, I played the demo. I'm like, okay, got it. It's one of those. Yeah, I never played it.
So it got me thinking, who are these games?
Need something?
Today?
Yep.
What a
Yep.
amazing
paid for. Why are they making them for them? And why aren't they buying them? Maybe it's not me ruining gaming. Maybe it's you. You know how we can take back gaming? You can start making games yourself. And you guys can do that with today's sponsor, Boot.dev. We oftentimes hear people say, if you don't like the games today, well then go make them yourself. And here's your chance. I partnered with Boot.dev, the smartest way to master back-end development to help you build your own digital empire. And Boot.dev, you learn back-end web development from start to finish with Python and Go. And what's awesome is that Boot.dev knows that not everybody can afford a full membership right away, so you can sign up for free and explore every course in read-only mode. You'll get all of the theory and content without any commitment. Then when you're ready to truly level up, a membership unlocks interactive challenges, Kingdom Come Deliverance too.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It's this weird mix of gatekeeping and defensive posturing, as if people aren't allowed to be critical of something without being treated like enemies.
Most live service game developers like to space things out, and it's normal to think that they would actually benefit more from doing so. Some gacha companies even have set schedules for when they will drip market characters coming in the next patch. So it is pretty weird when Kuro Games just refuses to do what any other normal company would do and do their own thing, right in the middle of a very high-profile collaboration event, and also just a few days after the release of a brand new character, by the way. They decided to just be like, screw it, here's a big surprise for our players. Just when we thought the game would slow down a bit after the constant Absolute Cinema updates we have gotten, they have actually hit us with yet another truck of content. There are 6 massive character reveals, all of them having incredible designs and potential. Did somebody say potential? And not just that, they also leaked their own gameplay footage through a highly respected person that is not Jeff Keighley. We are not even halfway through the updates, and we are already getting this much? This is, in my opinion, a little bit too insane. But before that, if you want to see more content from me, feel free to smash the like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell icon to keep up with my videos. Without wasting any more of your time, let's just get right into it. Let us first address the elephant in the room. What the f is Kuro Games thinking? They must be panicking right now in the office like there is no way. Day after day, there is always something new happening. Right now, they should be focusing on the Cyberpunk Edgerunners collab, which was just launched about a week ago, bringing in a faithfully written story and a faithfully crafted character models. Lucilla was also just dropped a few days ago. I haven't even fully built her up yet. Logically, the best move to make, at least for the revenue, is to wait. Any other company would space things out here and give their audience a break from the constant explosions to catch a breath. Wait until the hype dies down a bit. Wait until you get the most money out of it, and then you build up the hype again. But well, I guess getting the most money is not what the developers are trying to accomplish. They dropped a brief 1 minute and 40-second preview on YouTube that revealed 6, not just 1 or 2, but 6 whole characters. A week after the new update, a few days after the new character. Isn't that just insane? Some might even call it a blunder. And the community was obviously caught off guard. They went from talking about the collab, talking about other things like Tens playing Wuthering Waves, which I covered in my channel, to talking about how absolutely cooked their wallets are going to be, talking about the future that is going to arrive in just a few weeks. Because when you see these characters, none of them look skippable. All of them look so good. But what if that's the goal? I mean, think about it. Yes, the Cyberpunk collaboration just started a week ago. Lucilla just dropped, and people, even content creators, were barely able to breathe with all of the new content. Yet they decided to drop all of this. Screw all of the standard and how they're supposed to market and run their game based on the rulebook. What is it that they figured out that we haven't? And when I really think about it, there is actually no better time than now. Why, you may ask? The Cyberpunk collab undoubtedly got the game a lot of new and returning players. That is not an opinion, that is a fact. And we can see it through the active Steam player records breaking. When the new update went live, the servers were shaky, and a lot of new content creators covered it. People we never even thought would play the game promoted it. Tens, BTS, Jungkook, what the hell? Everybody, you name it. The game is getting praise from the player base as a whole, and even from the people they collaborated with. Wuthering Waves actually, unironically, went mainstream. If the devs go silent now, they could fumble what would otherwise be considered the freest of free wins. So what did they do? It is like they are saying the best collaboration in the genre might be ending this patch, but next patch, we have got a whole lot of other things for you. Look at all of these characters. Matter of fact, here is us leaking our own gameplay footage. And mark my words, this will not be the end of it. We are going to see more soon, and I bet you it's going to be absolute cinema. Right now, we can see how it's already shaping expectations. The new trailer shows us a style where traditional Chinese meets high-tech mechanical sci-fi elements. It tells the audience that the environment of this new region is going to look entirely different from anything we have explored over the last year. But that is just a theory for now. What we really got was the reveal of the characters. So why don't we check them out? The first character Kuro put on screen is a familiar face, but a 5-star version of her, Yang Shunling. I don't know about you, but this is a massive deal for me, because not only is Yang the literal poster child and mascot of the game, but she is canonically, literally the one who cares about you the most in the game. Every single patch, when you are sent a letter in your mailbox asking for your feedback, who sends it to you? Yang. And every single time, the message is different. It is not a copy and pasted message like, "Hey traveler, time to do a survey." Yang actually writes different letters for each survey based on what you experienced this patch. And isn't that just nice? Wholesome? Romantic? Who knows? But what I do know is that this Yang is the same girl, just with a completely different look and a much better looking kit and animations. Just look at her hair. It's the same hairstyle, but she got a glow up. Get it? Because it's glowing. A lot of players consider her 4-star version terrible. In the current meta, yeah, sure, I guess you could argue that. But at launch, her kit wasn't horrible at all. The only thing horrible about her was her voice acting direction.
Are you sure you want us to leave? It could be dangerous for you. Okay. Trizia and I will wear these black flowers and go look for members of the Black Shores in the city. The Trinodium is only going to send more of them as we go. We need someone to keep them away and escort the others into the statue. I understand you're planning to do it yourself, General. And I think I'm better suited for this task.
Thank God we have improved so much since then. Anyway, at launch, she wasn't top of the top amazing, but she was one of the more usable ones. Her outro helps energy-hungry characters, her rotations are quick, and she could group enemies. I mean, her damage was nothing to write home about, but she gets the job done, and that is what ultimately matters. Now we can see her having some of the most visually insane effects seen in the kit. The basic attack chain looks incredible, similar to something like a wuxia-style sword stance, but with blue fire effects. One might even suggest that this looks pretty Demon Slayer-esque. The bird chirping noises are cool details to notice, and when she does her ults, and the bird chirping sounds something like fireworks. But now, seeing her get this massive visual upgrade with a blue feather draped dress and her signature weapon, it immediately has people talking about something called a Second Resonance Awakening. That is basically a lore-driven event where a character's powers mutate and hit a completely new level. A fun talking point, though, is that for the fanbase, this sets a pretty healthy precedent. It means Kuro isn't just going to abandon the old launch cast from version 1.0, giving players hope that other forgotten characters might eventually get the same treatment. And then there is the massive debates over her actual combat elements, which Kuro just loves to do for some reason. Her 4-star element is Arrow, but some are debating whether she might be Havoc. Some guess Glacio, which I'm gonna be honest, is probably not happening. I mean, Hiyuki just released, and she is a Glacio sword user. It's probably not wise to put the exact same character type again in such a short amount of time. In my opinion, she's Electro, because the bird noises when she is attacking reminds me of Sasuke's Chidori from Naruto. I mean, Chidori translates to 1,000 birds, but that is just my theory, a game theory. I mean, going by colors is wrong when it comes to Kuro games anyway. Galbrina wears blue, but throws purple fire. And let's not even talk about Mornier. Right after her, we see Sui Sui, or Sui Sui, I have no idea. And the community immediately started psychoanalyzing her relationship to Yang Yang. The biggest theory going around is that they are sisters, mostly because their tacet marks look identical and sit in the exact same spots. Their foreheads. Like, how does that even work though, right? Bloodlines sharing tacet mark locations? Could they be twins? But if that is so, then why is Yang Yang tied to Jinso, while Sui Sui represents a place called Mingting? Her design splits the fan base a bit. She is blonde, wears an elegant cultural outfit, and wields a traditional fan. Her attacks are like dances, using fans in ways I've never seen before, or I have seen before, but this is just prettier, and I think that is original and creative. But looking past the surface design, veteran players are much more interested in what her kit implies. She uses a fan weapon, which usually means wind control, right? But the community is heavily betting on her being a dedicated support. Understandable, because she makes something like an AoE field that looks more like a support buffer kit rather than a DPS. Good news though, in this game's economy, support characters are pretty broken. People are already comparing her potential value to other meta-defining units. How generalist is she going to be compared to someone like Shorekeeper, for example? The general consensus is that even if her visual style arguably feels a bit reserved, her utility will probably make her an absolute must-pull for anyone looking to clear high-end content. Swarming instantly captured everyone's attention by leaning hard into a very specific aesthetic. She is dressed almost entirely in black and white with sharp red accents. A lot of players immediately called her a new version of Dungeon. I mean, of course they look similar in some ways, but at the same time, their aura is just too different. Dungeon looks nice, but in reality, she might be a little bit crazy. Swarming might look intimidating, judging in a way too, but she might be a sweetie pie. We will never know, huh? But because of that visual similarity, the community is already agreeing on her having the Havoc elements. Her weapon is an umbrella. We already have a character who attacks with an umbrella, which is Cantarella, who is also coincidentally Havoc, but her attacks are more flowy. I predict that with Swarming, we will get a more fast-paced attacker kind of character, and I just have a feeling that she is going to be Electro. I can't prove why exactly, but I just have a really strong feeling. And then you have Jingren. I don't know how to pronounce his name either, but he is the only male character Kuro decided to show off. Most of the people I saw on the internet are pretty happy about this. I also saw a few people who were pretty disappointed with the lineup because they were hoping for more male characters. I don't really know which part of my audience prefers. I don't know what y'all are leaning into, because to be honest, I don't know if you watch me because you want to hear my takes, or if you're just incredibly gay for my VTuber model. It really is one or the other, but don't worry, I'm not bothered by it. It's just interesting. Anyways, part of the community absolutely lost their minds over him. Like literally any male character ever announced in WoWa. He has two-tone hair that looks like the main character from the anime Windbreaker, a tacet mark on his eyes which looks very much like mine. Is this me in-game? Did Solon Lee really just make me a playable character? All this glazing, has it finally paid off? Solon, do you hear my cries? Please invite me to the next Kuro Fest! He carries a lantern and a spear, which players from Hoyoverse are calling out Kuro Games for copying, claiming that apparently Hoyoverse created male characters carrying lanterns, as per usual. Nothing out of the ordinary here, folks. This time I don't see much backlash though. Maybe I'm just not on that side of the algorithm. Personally, my For You page has been filled with Jalen Brunson, the king of New York, but that is besides the point. I'm not even American. There is also a lot of dry skepticism around him because of how Kuro traditionally treats male units. The running joke among players is that male characters have to jump through hoops just to survive, meaning they need a massive animation budget, a top-tier main damage kit. Love or hate the edginess, Kuro balances these niche character tropes by bringing out their absolute heaviest hitters for the final reveal. Cheng Xiao can step on me, and that is a compliment. She has a massive visual win, blending a very specific cloud and ice theme. She has cloud-like horns and an intricate dress with a distinct side cutout, which to me make her look like a premiumly designed unit. I really just made a new word for her, just for her. The trailer shows her summoning multiple floating swords made out of ice or clouds. Players are already arguing over whether she is a Glacio or Arrow character. If she is Arrow, she might directly compete with Karthikeya's role, but either way, it looks good, and that's all I care about. But she might be broken too. But I don't know, she might be a sub-DPS from the looks of it. And then the trailer drops to Shin. And yes, that is how you pronounce her name. It's Shin, not Hassin, Hassan. I've seen a lot of people mispronounce her name. I swear it's not that, bro. It was by far the biggest bombshell of the whole reveal. She could step on me too, but in doing so, I might actually die. Why? I can't believe I'm saying this, but there are lore reasons. There are actually lore reasons though. She is actually one of Huang Long's 7 sentinels. Could she still step on me? What is a high-tier bum to a low-tier god? Am I right? In this case, she is not a low-tier god, nor am I a bum. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I hope I'm making sense. The reason why this is such a big deal is that up until this point, sentinels were massive god-like boss creatures, right? Sometimes it's the enemies we fight. We have had sentinel resonators, we have had Trenodian resonators, but making a sentinel playable in a human body resonator form changes everything for the story going forward. It sets a precedent that top-tier cosmic entities and Trenodians are no longer off limits for the gacha roster. People are already joking that if sentinels are fair game, we are going to get a playable version of Aleph 1 to walk around automatically collecting echoes like Kirby. Actually, that might not be a complete impossibility. I have seen a few characters do that, but who knows? Visually, her design leans heavily into classic nine-tailed fox mythology, giving her a mature, commanding presence that completely matches her black and white red color scheme, right? The community reaction was instant as well, with players calling her an absolute must-purchase before even seeing a single frame of her actual combat. Looking at everything we got though, people are speculating that Kuro Games is trying to net more people into playing the game. I mean, that's a given, right? Some even argue that they are not trying to appeal to their core audience anymore, but in my opinion, that is not entirely true. From where I see it, Kuro Games found a way to please their own players while simultaneously attracting new people into playing the game. It shows from their reception, shows from how they did their marketing, and it shows in the raw data, how they managed to break their own peak player record, and how they managed to absolutely exceed expectations whenever they are given the opportunity. community, making me hopeful for the longevity of the game. 2 years is usually around the time where developers stop trying with a game and focus on the next game they're making, but that doesn't seem to be the case with Kuro Games, because the current Cyberpunk collaboration patch is a brief 30-something days. Version 3.5 is arriving much faster than anyone anticipated. The only problem people are worried about is not the quality of the patch or the content, or in this case the characters, it is about the in-game premium currency, their wallets. People like me who wailed on the Cyberpunk collab, or the people who emptied their savings in-game for Lucilla, are fully trained. Me personally, I'm gonna go in 100% all regions and play every quest to get as many asteroids as I can get. Thankfully, we have the skip button, and the game makes exploration incredibly easy. All things considered, Kuro Games played this situation beautifully. It is a pretty aggressive, confident move from a developer team that clearly knows exactly which buttons to press to manipulate player hype. They have successfully reset everyone's expectations. But a question for you though, looking at this entire 6-character lineup, which specific design caught your attention the most? And how do you feel about Kuro finally making Sentinels playable? If you enjoyed the video so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video to the people you think might enjoy this video as well. But that is all from me, Glaive Kyo, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.
Imagine walking into your very first day of high school, and your new teacher walks through the door looking like he just survived a knife fight in a Denny's parking lot. He slams his bloody hands on the desk, looks you dead in the eye, and calls your entire class absolute trash. Now imagine that this same terrifying teacher actually has the physical strength of a wet cardboard box, cannot cast a single spell, and is currently flagged by the system as an illegal, pirated player. Yeah, our guy is in some deep, deep trouble. But if he breaks character for even a second, the system will literally delete his subscription to life. To understand how this poor bastard ended up playing the ultimate bluff of his life, we have to look at the worst day of his existence. Welcome to Valdar Academy, the most prestigious magic high school on the continent, where today, the absolute gold standard of students is stepping up to the podium. This is Michael Foxon, the Academy's golden boy, blessed with glowing red eyes, silver hair, and the kind of main character energy that makes everyone else look like background NPCs. And watching him from a nearby tree is our guy, Chris Doughton, who is currently resting like a tired sloth and judging Michael's hair for looking like a giant cotton swab. See, for the last 3 years, Chris has been roleplaying as the ultimate legendary homeroom teacher, guiding this kid through his massive fantasy novel questline. And now that the main quest is finally complete, Chris is ready to resign, get his pension, and live a peaceful, slow life. At least, that was the plan. Until Michael decides to go completely off script during his graduation speech, crying and begging Chris to let him repay him for all his guidance. Michael literally pledges his entire life and loyalty to him right in front of the whole school, which instantly causes Chris to have a miniature stroke. And it's not just Michael. The other 4 top students of the graduation class stand up and pledge their eternal loyalty too. Chris is sitting there in the tree, sweating through his robes, because he is actually just a normal, powerless guy from Earth who doesn't know a single spell. And to make sense of this disaster, we have to go back to the exact moment he got hit by a truck. As his consciousness was fading on the asphalt, a sketchy-looking blue screen popped up in front of his eyes. It asked him if he wanted to accept a quest to get a second chance at life. Naturally, when the alternative is dying in a pool of your own blood, you don't exactly read the terms of service. He reached out, desperately wanting to live, and smashed that yes button before the truck driver could even call an ambulance. Next thing he knows, he wakes up in a fancy clinic with a nurse standing over him. But she's completely ignoring the massive glowing blue system screen floating right in front of him. She hands him his ID card, confirming his new identity as Chris Doughton, the newest teacher at Valdar Academy. Our guy is staring at the photo, completely lost. The nurse mentions he was late because of a train accident, which explains the bandage on his head, but he's more concerned about the glowing blue pop-ups. The system welcomes him to his new life and drops a massive bomb. He has to spend the next 3 years completing quests as Chris Doughton. That's when his gamer brain finally clicks. Valdar Academy is the setting of a trashy fantasy novel he used to read called The Strongest Demon King Hero. And the character he's currently inhabiting, he has absolutely no idea who this guy is. But the system doesn't care, instantly giving him a quest to reach the academy gates, with a penalty of literal death if he fails. Talk about a hostile work environment. He forces the clinic to discharge him early, even though his body feels like it got run over by a lawnmower, and immediately gets hit with a massive bill that wipes out half his savings. So he's broke, hurt, and has to walk half a day just to get to his new job. He decides to open his status window to see what kind of cheat abilities he got, and the system basically laughs in his face. His magic capacity is S rank, but his actual physical stats are straight Fs. And because he's technically an unauthorized user from another world, the system has locked all his skills. This is a massive problem. In this novel's lore, anyone who has magical capacity but can't cast spells is legally classified as a monster, and monsters get burnt at the stake. With the timer ticking down to his execution, our guy decides he's not going down without a fight. He realizes his public profile lists his fame as a shut-in mage, and since he used to get banned in MMORPGs for roleplaying too realistically, he decides to pull off the ultimate bluff. He's going to act like a mysterious god-tier mage who is simply too lazy and arrogant to show his true power. He finally arrives at the massive gates of Valdar Academy, emitting a dark, edgy aura that would make any middle schooler proud. The gatekeeper gargoyle takes one look at him and physically starts sweating. The gargoyle senses the S-rank magic rolling off him, combined with his pale skin and dead eyes, and assumes he's looking at the literal Grim Reaper in a human suit. Our guy takes a slow, dramatic step forward and looks down at the gargoyle with absolute disdain, calling him a mere pebble. The gargoyle is so terrified he can barely ask for his name and purpose. Chris lets out a cold, villainous chuckle and demands the gates be opened. He walks through the gates with the slow, confident stride of a dark lord, keeping his face hidden beneath his hair. But the moment he's out of sight, he drops the axe and starts wheezing like an asthmatic pug. He realized the totally unmotivated ultimate teacher archetype is his only ticket to survival. He starts mapping out the fake backstory he'll use to explain why he's such a deadbeat. He'll pretend he's traumatized by a tragic mistake in his past, making him refuse to teach meat class. It's the classic, if you want to see my magic, get stronger first excuse. Absolute genius. But his brainstorming is cut short when he feels something wet on his hand. His forehead wound has reopened, and the sight of his own blood makes him instantly dizzy. The system chimes in to announce he completed his quest, rewarding him with a map of the academy instead of some actual bandages. He's about to pass out, but he can't go to the nurse's office because they'll test him and realize he can't use magic. Suddenly, a soft voice asks if he's okay. Chris turns around and recognizes the cursed black tattoo on the kid's face. It's Michael Foxon, the future silver-haired protagonist, but currently just a weak, brown-haired underachiever. Chris immediately locks back into his edgy teacher persona, demanding to know why Michael isn't in class. Michael flinches, looking like a wet puppy, and explains that his practical magic teacher kicked him out of the training grounds for being too weak. Chris knows Michael can only summon a pathetic little ember right now, but he still internally gets pissed off at how garbage the academy staff is. Michael starts crying and profusely apologizing for existing, which makes Chris super uncomfortable. Before he can comfort the kid, the system slaps him with another emergency quest to reach Class X in 9 minutes. Even with his new map, Chris has no idea where he's going, so he tells Michael to stop crying and lead the way. He adds a little dark energy flare to his eyes, scaring the poor kid into moving instantly. They finally arrive at the door of Class X, but because Michael was too physically exhausted and emotionally damaged to walk, Chris had to carry him bridal style the entire way. Michael collapses onto the floor the moment Chris sets him down, panting for air. The rest of the class immediately starts mocking Michael for making a dramatic entrance, making the poor kid look even more depressed. Then, the heavy sound of boots echoes through the classroom. The students all turn around, and the entire room suddenly feels ice cold. Chris walks up to the teacher's podium, blood dripping down his pale face, and loudly proclaims that every single student in the room is absolute garbage. The students are completely stunned, whispered rumors flying about who this bleeding lunatic is. Suddenly, a hand shoots up in the air. It's Nika Tot, the class's honor student, who nervously points out that Chris is bleeding and shouldn't be here. Chris gets incredibly embarrassed about the blood, so he just glares at Nika and barks at him to shut up. The sheer pressure of his gaze makes Nika sit down and shut his mouth immediately. Chris internally panics because he actually has to teach now to clear his system quest, but he has zero magical knowledge. With no other options, he slowly picks up a piece of chalk and turns toward the blackboard. He writes self-study in giant letters and turns around with a smug grin. He then drags a luxury armchair over, slumps into it, and immediately pretends to fall asleep. He's secretly praying this lazy stunt actually counts as conducting a lesson, so the system doesn't kill him. But his peaceful nap is violently interrupted by a furious female voice slamming a desk. This is Angelina Sheriff, the Duke's daughter and potential heroine of this story. known to everyone as the haughty Ice Princess. She is absolutely outraged by his lazy attitude, especially since she's a high-class noble. Chris slowly opens his eyes, knowing Angelina has a tragic backstory in the novel, but he has to keep his unmotivated genius persona perfectly locked in. So he looks her straight in the eyes and tells her that if she doesn't like his teaching style, she can get lost. And while Angelina stands there completely paralyzed with shock, our guy is internally crying and begging her to forgive him. So our guy just told the Duke's daughter to get lost. Bold strategy. Let's see how it plays out. Angelina's jaw is literally on the floor. She is shaking with pure, unadulterated rage. She declares she has absolutely nothing to learn from a lazy fraud like him. Nika tries to play peacemaker, but the Ice Princess is already packing her bags. She tells Michael he'll never keep up with a real lesson anyway, tosses one last insult at the worthless teacher, and storms out. And just like that, the dominoes start falling. The other background students in the class look at each other, realize the vibe is entirely ruined, and decide it's time to bail. It's a literal mass exodus. They are leaving faster than players when a lobby host starts screaming into the mic. Our guy is just sitting there, maintaining his cold, brooding look, but internally, he is absolutely dying. His inner monologue is a pure, unfiltered panic attack. If they all leave and he gets fired on day one, he's basically homeless. But wait, the blue screen of salvation pops up. Quest cleared. He got a piece of the map and a monkey keychain. He sighs internally, thinking whatever god is running the simulation, and looks up to see who actually decided to stay in his classroom of doom. Well, would you look at that? The background extras are gone, leaving only the actual main cast. We've got Michael, our timid future god, Nika, the energetic glasses kid, Dolce, the smug redhead twintail, and Belle, the soft blonde healer. Chris realizes this is his moment. If he wants to keep this core group from running away, he has to lock in, drop the lazy act for a second, and deliver some absolute bar-heavy mentor dialogue. He slowly rises, resting his pale hands on the wooden podium, his hair casting a shadow over his face as his red eyes lock onto them. He tells them straight up that Valdar Academy isn't a cozy school. It's a literal training ground for killers. Give a deadly weapon to a kid who can't even control their own mana, and they won't just hurt themselves. They'll end up taking someone else's life. Calling that an accident or a simple mistake. That's just sugarcoating the brutal reality of their world. He leans forward, letting his massive, dark S-rank aura flare just enough to choke the air in the room, and asks, "Do you actually have the resolve to bear that responsibility?" The silence in the classroom is so heavy, you can hear a pin drop. The kids are completely paralyzed by the sheer weight of his words. Chris gives them one final, eerie smirk, turns around, and walks out without saying another word. Absolute cinema. Michael is sitting there, staring at his desk, his heart beating out of his chest. He's never had a teacher talk to him with this level of raw, unfiltered gravity. Meanwhile, just outside the school wall, our guy is leaning against the bricks, gasping for air, clutching his chest. He genuinely believes his lifespan just shortened by an entire decade. He needs to get his nerves under control, and fast. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his quest reward, the monkey keychain. He looks at it. It's this incredibly round, soft, cute little cartoon monkey. It is completely adorable. But if an edgy, dark-cloaked master of death like Chris carries this around, the aesthetic is totally ruined. He wonders if it has any stats. A system prompt pops up. Equip monkey keychain? Yes/no. Once equipped, it cannot be unequipped for 5 minutes. He clips it onto his waist belt. Let's see if this little guy has some hidden OP stats. And oh, an entire rank boost to agility. It goes from F snail to E big bro snail. To a guy with triple F stats, this is a literal cheat item. He smirks. As long as he hides it under his tattered poncho, nobody has to know he's carrying a plush toy. High agility means better dodging, which is perfect for a fraud. But then the system drops the fine print. While equipped, your speech will end with key. His face goes completely blank. He is frozen in sheer horror as the reality of the situation sinks in. He starts shaking the system screen in a silent, furious rage. Is this damn game calling him a monkey? Chris Doton would literally never speak like that. Suddenly, a gasp cuts through his panic. He turns his head and sees Angelina standing on the stairs, her eyes wide with shock. She dropped her lit cigarette on the stone step. Yes, the proud, rule-abiding Ice Princess of the Duke's family was secretly smoking behind the school. Her mind is instantly racing. The moment those terrifying red Reaper-like eyes locked onto her, her defense mechanisms went into overdrive. She knows his type, the arrogant, tyrannical geniuses who look down on everyone. She's seen that scornful, cold gaze from her own family her entire life. They stand there in a tense, silent standoff. She waits for him to call the guards, restrain her, or expose her secret to the entire academy. The silent pressure radiating from him is suffocating. She bites her lip, clenches her fists, and decides to just own up to it. She confesses. She admits she was smoking, says she won't deny it, and tells him she'll accept whatever punishment he decides to hand down. Deep down, she's almost relieved. If he tells her she's unfit, rejects her, and ruins her high reputation, then maybe she can finally give up on all this heavy noble pressure and just be free. She bows her head, waiting for the axe to fall. Chris slowly walks up to her, raises his hand, and gently pokes her forehead. Pathetic kid key. Angelina blinks, her blue eyes wide as she looks up. Wait, did he just say key? What does that even mean? But then she looks at his face. His red eyes aren't angry, mocking, or full of disgust. They look incredibly lonely, like someone who has watched people suffer, make terrible mistakes, and meet tragic, irreversible ends before. She realizes he's not a tyrant. He's human. He's just like her. He turns around to walk away, his dark hair swaying in the breeze. And as his poncho shifts, she spots it. The cute little monkey doll hanging from his belt. Her brain instantly does some Olympian-level mental gymnastics. She assumes the cute doll must be a deeply painful memento from someone precious he lost in the past. She bows deeply, apologizing for reminding him of his trauma and for acting like a childish amateur. Chris is walking away, scratching his head, sweating bullets. He is internally screaming because his 5 minutes aren't up yet, and he's just praying she didn't hear the monkey noise. A bit later, back in Class X, the door slides open, and Angelina steps inside, looking uncharacteristically flustered. Nika is absolutely hyped. He pumps his fist, shouting that with Angelina back, they have a solid 5-man elite squad now. Dolce rests her chin on her hand, giving a smug grin, saying it's their loss for transferring out. She wanted to show those useless background extras what they're made of anyway. She leans over, teasing Michael, who instantly flushes red and stammers. Chris watches them from the podium, thinking Dolce is a certified little devil type character. Belle gently tells Dolce to stop teasing Michael, turns her soft pink eyes to the front, and asks Chris what today's lesson will be. Chris takes a slow, deep breath. He really wanted to just keep assigning self-study and sleeping in his comfy chair, but he's out of options. His eyes go sharp as he looks down at the eager faces of his students. He slams his hand onto the podium, his voice echoing through the room. Today's lesson is field training. And right on cue, the system drops a massive, glowing blue alert. Main quest, slay 50 monsters on the Venice Plains. Penalty for failure, a very cute, terrifying smiley face. Time remaining, 24 hours. The countdown to survival starts now. Hashtag chapter 44. The scene shifts to the Venice Plains, a massive sunlit valley of lush green grass and blooming wild daisies under a clear blue sky. A massive, glowing green magic circle expands in the air, and with a flash of light, Chris and his 5 students materialize on the plains. Nika is absolutely losing his mind with excitement. He sparkles, asking if Chris just cast high-level spatial teleportation magic before they even got their weapons. Chris maintains his deadpan expression, but internally, he is sweating. He didn't cast that. He literally cannot cast a single spell. Dolce tilts her head, pointing out that a weird, ominous shadow is suddenly hovering directly over the professor's head. Chris slowly turns around as a cold breeze sweeps through the valley, carrying a thick, bloody stench. A system alert flashes. Teleportation by an unknown third party confirmed. Standing right behind them is a horde of horn rabbits, led by a truly gargantuan red-eyed boss. Dolce and Angelina scream in pure terror. The boss monster is towering over them like a fluffy mountain of pure malice. Our guy looks up at the massive, fanged rabbit, his face going completely pale. He is internally crying, wondering if this is where his short, fraudulent life finally ends. The system timer starts ticking down. 50 monsters to defeat, and they are currently at 0. The giant horn rabbit boss growls, its massive teeth dripping saliva as it steps closer, casting a shadow over Chris's small, fragile form. Chris clenches his jaw. He tells himself to get a grip. He is currently playing the role of Chris Doton, the ultimate, cold-blooded magical genius. He has to think, what would a badass anime mentor do? He raises his voice, glaring at his panicked students, calling them fools, and asking if they've already forgotten why they are here. Angelina looks at him, bewildered, asking if he seriously expects them to train when a giant giant boss is about to stomp them flat. But Nika's nerd brain instantly connects the dots. He sparkles, realizing that the professor is obviously going to solo the massive boss himself, leaving the small fry for them. Chris's inner gamer is shedding tears of pure joy. He thanks Nika for the god-tier interpretation of his panic. Dolce just sighs, complaining that they're on minion cleanup duty. Angelina takes a deep breath, her eyes turning serious. She apologizes, realizing he must have a calculated plan and wouldn't put them in danger without reason. She raises her hands, ice magic swirling around her body as she summons a massive glowing blue frost lance. She charges forward, her boots kicking up grass as she dashes toward the swarming minor horn rabbits. With a sharp swing, she unleashes her ice lance, shattering a rabbit into glowing blue fragments as it lets out a high-pitched shriek. Belle raises her hands, green healing mana glowing in her palms, telling Michael she'll support him from the back. Michael closes his eyes, trying to concentrate his mana, desperately calling forth his flames to summon a small, flickering ember. The system kill counter starts updating. 53, then 56. Chris is cheering them on from the back, acting like a proud soccer mom. But then, a cold drop of sweat rolls down his temple. The shadow over him hasn't moved. He slowly looks down. He is literally standing on the golden, glowing horn of the giant rabbit boss. The giant beast slowly raises its head, its crimson eyes staring directly at him, licking its massive fangs. Chris's soul is practically leaving his body. He clenches his fists, trying to find a weapon. If he fails this quest, the system will delete him anyway, so he has to do something. But before he can move, the giant rabbit snaps its jaws shut. A massive impact shakes the plains. Michael turns around just in time to see the giant beast bite down right where Chris was standing. He screams "Professor" at the top of his lungs, his face pale with horror. Tears spill from his eyes as he falls to his knees. It's happening again. Someone else is dying right in front of him because he is too weak to help. He clenches his fists, sobbing, asking why he's such a pathetic failure who can't even defeat a single low-level monster. He reaches out toward the dust cloud, his voice cracking with pure despair, blaming himself for the professor's death. Belle runs up, grabbing him by the shoulders, desperately trying to pull him back as he struggles to run toward the boss. She tells him through her own tears that it's already too late. The professor sacrificed himself to give them a chance to escape. Michael trembles, shaking his head. No, she's wrong. It shouldn't have been like this. He grabs Belle's shoulders, begging her to use her healing magic, hoping against hope that they can still save him. But Belle just looks down, her eyes full of sorrow, whispering that she's sorry. Michael's mind flashes back to a few days ago in the empty classroom. He remembers standing before Chris, clenching his fists, confessing that he wanted to become strong. He wanted to be strong enough to carry his own weight and take responsibility for his cursed power. He had expected Chris to laugh at him, to call him a useless failure, just like all the other teachers did. But Chris had simply given him a quiet, gentle smile. He told him with absolute certainty, "You will become strong, Michael." He was the only person in the entire world who ever believed in him. Back in the present, Dolce unleashes a fierce fire spell, screaming at Michael to snap out of it and help them fight their way out. Nika's hands glow with brilliant yellow mana as he unleashes a spell called Sunrise, declaring that they have to give everything they have to survive. But Michael is completely broken. He weeps, muttering that he's just a useless burden and that he should have been the one eaten instead. Suddenly, the world around him goes dead silent. The sky darkens, turning a deep blood red color. A sinister dark voice echoes directly in his mind, wrapping around his thoughts like cold chains. "You want power, don't you, Michael?" A terrifying winged demonic shadow manifests behind him, reaching its clawed purple hands toward his shoulders. "Then take my hand. Let us become one." Michael, completely blinded by grief and despair, slowly raises his hand to accept the dark contract, ready to give up his soul to avenge his teacher. But right before their fingers can touch, a cold, dry voice cuts through the darkness like a blade. "Everyone, stop!" The dark illusion shatters instantly. The dust clears, and there stands Chris Doughton, completely covered in black, steaming monster blood, looking like an absolute horror movie villain. He coldly asks, "Why are you running? Can't you see the monsters are still swarming around us?" So, our guy just exploded out of a giant rabbit like a budget horror villain. And of course, Nika immediately does some mental gymnastics and assumes this was a high-brain tactical play. Chris doesn't correct him. He just plays along, sighing like they're all disappointing him by running away. Nika is so inspired, he runs off to slay more rabbits, leaving Belle yelling after him in pure panic. Then we have Dolce. She slides up with a smug, mischievous grin. She whispers that she's going to find out what he's plotting. Chris internally weeps, realizing she is his biggest threat. Meanwhile, Michael and Angelina are standing there, looking like they've just survived a emotional roller coaster. They are literally crying, tears streaming down, noses sniffing, completely emotionally wrecked. Our guy is just baffled. He's wondering why the proud Duke's daughter is sobbing like a toddler. Angelina yells that it was too dangerous for a simple test, and he should have just one-shot the boss. Chris decides explaining the actual truth is way too much of a hassle, because how is he supposed to explain that the rabbit literally exploded because his S-rank magic capacity acted like a stomach bomb? So he just drops his classic edgelord line, "If you don't like my methods, leave." This just makes them cry harder. Michael begs him not to abandon them. Excellent. The guilt trip is working. He tells them to shut up and get back to training before he loses his mind. Let's break down why that giant rabbit actually exploded. Every living thing has mana, but monsters are born poor, so they have to drain humans to survive. Chris is a walking S-rank magic crystal, which makes him the ultimate luxury buffet. But trying to absorb his mana is like stuffing a watermelon into a tiny plastic bag. The boss is dead, but the minion rabbits are still swarming. Dolce steps up, casting Seagull Wave, sending a torrent of water rushing forward. Angelina follows up instantly, screaming Icicle as she prepares to freeze the wet targets. The combo is perfect. The rabbits are frozen solid in seconds. Chris is silently cheering, realizing his students are doing all the work, but he still needs a way to dodge if one of them slips past. He reaches into his cloak and equips the monkey keychain, boosting his agility from F-snail to E-snail. And thank God he did, because a wild rabbit lunges directly at his face. He barely dodges. If he was still F-rank, he would have lost half his cheek. Michael watches, astounded by his reflexes. The counter hits 49 out of 50. Dolce giggles, saying she accidentally let one slip through. Nika blasts the final rabbit with a beam of light, finishing the quest. Suddenly, a massive shadow blocks out the sun. Chris looks up and sees a giant red dragon. And riding that dragon is a guy who looks like he spent his entire budget on an edgy anime cosplay. The blindfolded guy leaps off the dragon, landing right in front of Chris, calling him beautiful. He pulls down his hood, showing a fanged smile, acting like a maiden in love. Chris is internally screaming. He has absolutely no idea who this pervert is or what his relationship with the original Chris was. The students are watching this play out in absolute dead silence. Crap, Chris tries to play it off, sweating bullets, claiming he has never seen this man in his life. The blindfolded guy, Maria, pouts, asking if he's still mad about what happened back then. Michael looks at Chris's tense posture. He can see the sheer, cold intensity in Chris's eyes. The kids assume this new guy is an absolute monster because Chris has never looked this cautious. They realize this blindfolded creep must be the mastermind who summoned the rabbits in the first place. Maria sighs, complaining that Chris killed his precious darlings. Michael grinds his teeth, realizing they would have been dead instantly if Chris hadn't been here to protect them. Maria walks up, stepping into Chris's personal space, mentioning that the master wanted him to check on the young master's progress. He leans in, his creepy, fanged grin inches from Chris's face, telling him to see things from his perspective. Michael and Angelina prepare their weapons, sensing the terrifying, murderous intent. Maria gently strokes Chris's face, asking why he's being so quiet and passive. Michael's eyes go wide as he watches his god-tier teacher just stand there and take it. He thinks Chris is holding back because of them. He thinks Chris is absorbing all that terrifying pressure just to keep his weak students safe from the fallout. The realization hits him like a truck. He is still just a useless burden, unable to do anything but finish off monsters that are already half dead. Maria whispers that he's only following orders, so he won't get in Chris's way, but he still wants a smile or a compliment to lift his spirits. Michael is watching, completely misinterpreting the vibe, thinking this is some toxic, twisted form of courtship. Maria chuckles, reminding Chris that he always used to praise his beautiful face. Our guy has heard enough. He quietly reaches into his system menu under his cloak. He swaps the keychain for his new quest reward, the ancient rusty sword, and slashes forward. The blade splits the air, stopping millimeters from Maria's neck. Michael's jaw drops. Where did that sword even come from? He realizes this must be creation magic, the legendary ability to manifest items out of nothing. Chris glares, his voice cold as ice. Talking your sleep, trash. Maria just laughs, completely unbothered, loving the sheer danger. He smiles, murmuring "my Chris" before stepping back. And internally, our guy is thanking his lucky stars, because right before Maria got too close, Michael finished off the 50th rabbit, clearing the quest. The system popped up, rewarded him with the ancient rusty sword, and he equipped it in the nick of time. It only has 3 uses, but it can cut through anything. Maria jumps back onto his dragon, saying he'll come back another time when Chris is in a better mood. Chris tells him to beat it before he tears his mouth open. The red dragon takes off, disappearing into the clouds. Crisis avoided. Chris turns back to his students, looking like an absolute boss. The kids immediately collapse, completely out of mana, wheezing on the grass. He tells Angelina to send a messenger for a carriage because he is not walking back. Dolce complains, asking why he doesn't just teleport them back. Because he literally can't, Dolce. Shut up. Michael defends him, saying they need to reflect on their own weakness today. Love this kid. The next day, back at the academy, Chris is walking down the grand hallway, sighing. The stress of this job is taking years off his life. He tries to piece together the lore. That blindfolded freak is definitely Maria from the novel, a high-ranking monster controller. He can only sense massive trouble heading his way. Suddenly, he senses someone approaching. A cheerful, green-haired teacher waves at him. It's Eugene, the homeroom teacher of Class Y. Here's the situation. Because of the abnormal field training incident, the principal summoned the kids. She reinforced the defense magic circles and placed a strict gag order on the entire event. And to make things worse, she assigned this narrow-eyed, green-haired teacher to spy on Chris. Why? Because they suspect Chris might be colluding with the remnants of the Demon Lord's army. The Demon Lord was defeated a decade ago, but in every fantasy cliché, they're lurking in the shadows, planning a comeback. So Chris is caught in a triple cross between the principal, the Imperial forces, and the demon cult. Eugene smiles, inviting him to lunch. Chris drops his standard edgelord response, telling him to beat it. Eugene leans in close, his voice dropping to a whisper, acting weirdly flirty. Chris's face twists into absolute disgust. He's wondering if everyone in this academy is a certified pervert. He tells Eugene to shove his own fist in his mouth. And right on cue, the system drops a new quest. Invite a fellow teacher to hold a joint class. Penalty, death. Chris internally screams. The do or die default setting on this system is getting ridiculous. He realizes he has no choice. He has to use this green-haired spy to clear the quest. Eugene is the perfect target since Class Y is right next door. But how is he supposed to invite him while staying in his extremely cold, aggressive character? He realizes the quest doesn't say they have to be friends, so he doesn't need to act nice at all. He glares at Eugene, telling him he just wasted 5 whole minutes of his precious time. He channels the original tragic backstory of Chris Doton. He acts out the cringy, edgy dialogue, clenching his fist. Eugene is actually taken aback by the intensity. Chris proposes a match between their classes, Class X versus Class Y. If Class X wins, Eugene has to stay the hell away from him forever. Eugene's eyes go sharp. He realizes this is the perfect chance to gather information. He laughs, proposing that if Class Y wins, Chris has to treat him to a meal. Chris smirks, telling him there's zero chance of that happening. Internally, Chris is throwing a party. The joint class is locked in, and the quest is as good as cleared. They agree to hold the match tomorrow afternoon. Chris walks away, confident that with the actual main cast in his class, they won't lose to a bunch of extras. But as he turns the corner, Nika is peeking from behind a pillar, tears in his eyes, thinking the professor is holding this match because he has absolute faith in them. Oh boy, here we go again with the misunderstandings. Rumors are spreading through the hallways like wildfire. The entire student body is gossiping about the legendary Class X and Class Y showdown, and the hype is real. Nika bursts through the doors of the meeting room, looking like he just ran a marathon backward. He slams his hands on the frame and asks if everyone is present. He looks like a man who has discovered a government conspiracy. The rest of the squad is just chilling. Angelina is thoroughly annoyed, claiming she has dinner plans and needs him to make this quick. They discuss the upcoming match, assuming it's just a normal academic rivalry. But then Nika drops his voice to a whisper, claiming they haven't heard the most critical detail. He reveals that if Class X loses, Professor Eugene gets to go on a date with their teacher. The squad's faces instantly distort in absolute horror. He recalls overhearing Eugene casually asking Chris out for a dinner date if Class Y wins. Angelina is completely stunned, asking if he's absolutely sure he didn't mishear. Nika proudly states that tots never lie. Dolce points out that eating out with the opposite sex is a certified date, and this is the first time they've ever heard gossip about Eugene. Michael's brain completely short circuits. He is trembling, processing the concept of his sacred teacher being taken out on a date by a shady rival. Nika then explains that Chris snapped back, demanding Eugene never show his face again if Class X wins. He believes this is proof of Chris's ultimate faith in them. Michael's hands start sparking with purple-black cursed fire. They are so incredibly motivated to save Chris from this date that they are ready to fight God. Meanwhile, Chris is hiding around the corner, completely exhausted. He realizes the stupid dinner rumor has spiraled entirely out of control. The day of the showdown finally arrives, the sun shining brightly over the academy's massive stone arena. But when Class X lines up, the numbers gap is hilarious. It's 5 kids against an entire army of Class Y students. Eugene slides up to Chris, asking if he's familiar with the match format. It's a best of 5, one-on-one duel setup. Chris acts like a battle maniac, muttering that a massive free-for-all brawl would be much faster. He looks at his squad, remembering how they already pulled off high-level elemental combos during the rabbit attack without any actual instruction. Eugene tells him to choose his first fighter. Chris sighs, deciding there's no need to overthink this. He glares at Class Y, his red eyes sharp, ready to just let brute force handle the situation. He calls on Nika Tot to step up first. Nika's face lights up with absolute blinding devotion. He salutes, shouting, "Victory or death." Chris internally tells him to relax, because this is literally just a school match. The two fighters stand in the center. The rules are simple. There's a barrier HP counter of 50, and whoever hits 0 first loses. The match begins. The Class Y opponent lunges forward, swinging their sword in a wide arc. Nika stands his ground. With a sudden, massive swing of his wooden practice sword, Nika deflects the strike, the impact shaking the entire courtyard. The force of the counterblow is so insane that the opponent is sent flying backward through the air, losing their grip on their weapon. They crash hard onto the stone floor, their barrier HP counter instantly hitting absolute 0. Chris's face goes completely blank. He is screaming internally. A one-hit knockout from a kid who is supposed to be a support build. Nika politely helps the defeated opponent up, smiling brightly. What's even crazier is that the crowd is completely unfazed, acting like this is normal. The crowd murmurs that of course Nika won, since he's a member of the legendary Tot family. Michael is amazed by Nika's growth. Chris is just relieved that he's not the only one in the stadium who is deeply unsettled by Nika's terrifying physical strength. Eugene remains calm, asking who Chris's next fighter will be. Chris strokes his chin, pretending to think it over with deep, mysterious calculation. He points his finger directly at Angelina. She gasps, her blue eyes widening in surprise. She quickly composes herself, walking past him, claiming she will easily secure another win for his sake. Dolce yawns, whispering that she'll gladly wrap things up as the third fighter in this best of 3. Michael is standing in the background, whining like a lost puppy, begging Chris to give him a chance to show his strength. Dolce gives him a sly, knowing look, her feline eyes narrowing with a secret plan. The second match begins. Angelina steps onto the field, ice magic swirling around her body like a frozen aura. The opponent charges, but Angelina blocks the strike effortlessly, frost spreading across their weapons. The crowd cheers at the beautiful clash. With a swift twist, Angelina shatters the opponent's guard and lands a direct blow to the chest. The opponent falls, their counter hitting 0. Angelina stands victorious, tossing her hair back with absolute grace. She looks back at Chris with this adorable, smug expression, waiting for a compliment like a dog waiting for a treat. Chris coldly tells her to get back in line. She blushes and quickly obeys. Eugene smiles, pointing out that Class X only need one more win to finish this. Chris looks at Dolce, telling her to step up and finish this cleanly so they can all go home. Dolce smiles, but instead of walking to the arena, she grabs Michael's arm and announces she has a secret plan. Nika is losing his mind, asking if she's sick or if she's secretly trying to let the teacher go on that dreaded date. Chris glares, asking if she got cold feet at the finish line. Dolce winks, claiming it would be completely unfair for her to participate in a strict one-on-one match. And she's actually right. Dolce has an invisible sixth party member, her literal twin sister, who hides in her shadow. She whispers to Michael to win in her place, pushing him forward with a cheerful smile. Chris realizes she's just trying to set up a romantic protagonist moment. Chris rubs his forehead in exhaustion. He decides it's fine to lose once or twice anyway to keep the match interesting. He looks down at Michael, his voice dropping to a serious tone, asking if he is prepared. Michael clenches his fist, his knuckles turning white under the pressure. He yells that he will give it his absolute all and secure the victory for his master. Chris gives a quiet, satisfied smile, thinking a simple student match will be perfectly fine. Michael steps onto the stone arena, facing his opponent. His opponent is a purple-haired noble kid who immediately sneers. He calls Michael a cursed, disgusting commoner and tells him to be grateful. Chris sighs, realizing that of course the original novel had to include typical toxic mob characters to bully the protagonist. But the bully doesn't stop at status. He looks Michael dead in the eye and asks how it feels to attend the academy after literally killing his own mother. Michael's eyes instantly go hollow. His breath catches in his throat as the trauma tears through his chest. He clutches his face, his body trembling violently as dark, purple-black smoke begins to leak from his cursed crest. Chris's eyes go wide. He realizes this isn't a normal power awakening. Michael is actively losing his mind to the curse. The black aura expands rapidly, casting a massive, terrifying shadow over the entire arena. The crowd begins to panic. The bully is still standing there with a smug grin, completely oblivious, promising to take him down in a single hit. The dark magic explodes in a massive shockwave. Chris screams for the match to be cancelled, leaping forward, but it's too late. The purple-black smoke completely swallows Michael's form. He is fully transformed into a massive, clawed demonic beast with glowing red eyes and horns. The arrogant bully drops his sword, screaming in pure, raw terror as the monster lunges directly at him. The system drops a sudden, flashing alert. Complete the class as a teacher. Difficulty adjusted. Chris internally curses the system's horrible timing. Chris runs full speed toward the rampaging beast, knowing the arena's safety barrier is the only reason nobody has died yet. He looks at the monster's face, praying that a small sliver of Michael's human consciousness is still still in there. Suddenly, Eugene dashes past him, intercepting the beast. He casts Bind, summoning massive, glowing golden chains that wrap around Michael's demonic arms. But Michael shatters the chains effortlessly, his massive fist striking Eugene directly in the chest and sending him crashing into the wall. The other teachers scream for everyone to fall back, realizing Michael's dark magic is completely blocking out their spells. They yell at Chris to run away, but Chris doesn't stop. His black boots tap firmly against the stone tiles as he walks directly toward the monster. The students watch in absolute awe. Michael growls, his beastly voice begging Chris to run away before he loses control completely. Chris is internally terrified, his heart pounding against his ribs, but he refuses to break character. He steps into the monster's shadow, his pale hand reaching out with absolute calmness. He grabs Michael's massive, clawed hand just as it begins to swing down. The dark, acidic magic of the curse burns directly into Chris's skin, sizzling and smoking, but he doesn't flinch. He looks up at the beast, his red eyes piercing through the dark smoke, and asks if this wild, mindless rampage is the strength he truly desired. He tells him that his cursed fate doesn't define him. If he makes a true, unwavering resolution, he can always be reborn as a strong person. Tears spill from the monster's red eyes. The purple-black flesh begins to melt away, revealing Michael's crying, human face underneath. Chris lets go, turning his back as his tattered poncho sways in the wind. He coldly warns him that there won't be a next time, demanding he stand up and return to Class X. Michael is saved once again. Michael watches silently from the steps as his cold, majestic master turns and walks away into the sunset. And the second our guy is behind a wall and out of sight, he absolutely loses his mind, screaming in pure agony because his hand is literally third-degree burned from absorbing Michael's dark curse raw. Thankfully, the blue screen of salvation rings. Quest complete. He receives a complete map of the academy, unlocks the location detection function, and gets a rotten mandrake root that boosts his recovery speed by 200%. He checks the updated map, noticing a weird red flashing question mark in the medical wing. He wants to check on Michael, but he also needs to find out if that green-haired spy, Eugene, survived the blast. He walks up to the heavy, grand doors of the academy's medical ward. He slides the door open, just a tiny crack, peeking inside like a sketchy neighborhood watch coordinator. He internally facepalms. This goofy peeking behavior doesn't fit his cold, legendary master character at all, but he has absolute trauma from losing disciples in his past life. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the quiet room. I knew you'd come. It's Eugene, sitting shirtless and heavily bandaged in his hospital bed, giving a sparkling, cheerful smile as if he didn't just get blasted through a brick wall yesterday. The sun shines brightly outside, casting a warm light through the ward windows. Chris walks up to the bedside, folding his arms and dropping his typical cold line, telling him he did something incredibly foolish. Eugene just chuckles, asking if Chris noticed. Chris is internally sweating. He remembers the fight. When Eugene jumped in to bind Michael, he didn't use any defensive barrier magic. This absolute madman tanked a demonic berserk blow completely raw. Eugene smiles, claiming that owing a favor to the master is a cheap price to pay for his survival. This guy's flirting skills are honestly dangerous. Chris tells him to shut up, then brings up their bet. Since Class X won the match, Eugene officially loses. Eugene ponders for a moment, looking incredibly handsome as he rests his chin on his hand. Then he flashes a brilliant, flower-filled smile, suggesting they celebrate Class X's victory by letting him buy Chris a dinner anyway. Chris's face twists in pure irritation. He points out that Eugene is completely missing the point of losing a bet. Eugene just plays dumb, claiming he must have hit his head. He tells Chris to contact him anytime. Chris turns and walks out, muttering that he absolutely cannot deal with this pervert. He slams the hospital door shut, leaning against it with a heavy sigh. His brain is short-circuiting. He's wondering if this fantasy world secretly has a hidden dating sim element that the author forgot to mention in the description. And right on cue, a glowing blue system screen pops up. From chapter 2 onwards, the route branches depending on the choices the player makes. 3 options appear. Route 1, Demon Lord. Route 2, Holy Emperor. Route 3, Do Not Choose Our Guy is staring at the screen with absolute disgust. What kind of choices are these? And what is up with the hearts? He taps on the Demon Lord route to see the fine print. The description reveals that if he chooses this route, he's officially a spy for the Demon Lord, tasked with recruiting Michael to conquer the world. He checks the Holy Emperor route. The objective here is to betray the Demon Lord, train Michael to be a holy knight, and prevent the Demon Lord's resurrection. Finally, he taps on the Do Not Choose option. The system screen literally says, not choosing, being indecisive will make you disliked. LOL. Factions on both sides will become extremely wary of you. Chris starts analyzing. If he chooses the Holy Emperor, Maria and the Dragon Cult will hunt him down. If he chooses the Demon Lord, the perverted spy Eugene becomes his enemy. He wants absolutely none of this drama. He clenches his teeth, realizing there's only one logical choice for a true, lazy, neutral player. He taps his finger firmly on the Do Not Choose button. Route selected. The system wishes him good fortune in his upcoming struggle. He smirks. There is officially no turning back now. He tells himself he doesn't regret this choice. A true master walks his own path. Cut to the next day. Chris is sitting in a tiny, cramped, dusty room, looking completely dead inside. His backpack is leaning against the wall, his single boots resting on the wooden floor. He grabs his head, screaming in pure panic. If he's the main character, why the hell did he just get kicked out of his workplace on day 3? Flashback to the day after he chose the neutral route. The temporary female master walked up to him with a smug look, informing him that the principal placed him on a mandatory 1-month leave of absence. Chris sits on his cheap bed, coughing into his hand, trying to process this sudden unemployment. He realizes this is the exact penalty of the Do Not Choose route. The Holy Emperor faction is already extremely wary of him. A system profile shows his status, Chris Doughton. Recognition level is practically 0, and everyone thinks he's a suspicious creep. He flops onto his back, staring at the ceiling. Well, since it's a rare vacation, he might as well enjoy his suspension. He reasons that the Demon Lord route is out of the question, and pledging loyalty to the Holy Emperor sounds way too tedious. Besides, with his cold, unmotivated master persona, he can't exactly beg the principal to let him back in. But the universe has a very specific sense of humor. The system rings, Wish of the Earth, God 2-1. Parent Master Day is about to begin. The alert explains that the wealthy, influential parents of Class X are coming to see how their tuition fees are being spent. Chris has an obligation to make the day a success. Reward, present box, penalty, become a freshly deceased corpse. Time remaining, 72 hours. Chris is screaming in pure rage. Parent Master Day? Is he running a local kindergarten? Or what? More importantly, his class is full of outcasts and curses. How is he supposed to show that to the parents? Oh, and he's currently suspended. He clenches his fist, the realization hitting him like a cold bucket of water. He has exactly 72 hours to get his job back, fix his class, and survive. The grind never stops. Hashtag Chapter 10. The sun shines brightly over Valdar Academy as a student's voice echoes through the courtyard. Master is on leave? Belle explains to the others that a temporary master has been assigned, and she has absolutely no idea why Chris was suspended. Dulce tosses her hair back, sighing that the master probably got bored of the school and bailed. She looks down, her yellow eyes turning sad, whispering that he probably just got tired of them. Angelina slams her desk, yelling that it's cowardly to talk behind his back. Dulce instantly teases her, asking what's wrong with her face since she looks like she's about to cry. Nika steps in, claiming that Chris must have taken responsibility for the recent field training incident. He slams his fists, shouting that their teacher sacrificed his position to protect Michael from being punished for his rampage. The girls stare at Nika, the silence in the classroom turning heavy and emotional. Michael sits silently in his chair, clenching his fist as he remembers Chris's words about being reborn as a strong disciple. He grinds his teeth, realizing his master took the fall for his own dark weakness. He feels a deep, burning regret. He hasn't even had the chance to express his gratitude to the man who saved his life. He stands up, his eyes filled with absolute determination, looking at the girls. He yells that they have to do something. He promises that he will definitely bring their master back. Nika immediately takes action, sprinting down the hallway. He bursts into the temporary master's office, shouting that it's an emergency and she needs to contact the principal. The temporary female master sighs, telling him for the 100th time that her name is not Sanai-kun. Nika cuts her off, screaming that Michael is on the verge of losing control and going completely berserk again. The teacher just rubs her forehead, completely exhausted. How many times has this happened today? She accepted Class X because their parents are the most influential nobles in the empire, but these kids are a literal nightmare who don't listen to a single word. She walks into the classroom, expecting a bloody slaughter, and finds Michael groaning, clutching his head on his desk. Michael is screaming that something is exploding inside him, while Dulce is behind him, pulling his collar and telling him to put more passion into his acting. Belle and Angelina are standing in the corner, giving the most half-hearted, fake cheers about healing him. The temporary master is deadpan. What a terrible group of actors. She patiently explains that if a student actually goes out of control, a automatic barrier alert goes to the faculty, and currently the alert counter is at 0. Michael instantly stops groaning, smiling awkwardly. Oh, is that so? My bad. Nika yells behind her, asking Michael why he's giving giving up so easily, since only Master Chris can calm his dark curse. The temporary master's face twists in pure, boiling rage. All she hears is Chris, Chris, Chris. What the hell is so good about that deadbeat teacher? She decides she just needs to put up with this drama until Parent Master Day. If she can get on the parents' good side, her career is set. Cut to a cozy local tavern called Frog's Rest on the edge of town. The mustache-wearing innkeeper is sweating bullets, nervously wiping a wooden cup. In the dark corner, Chris is slowly sipping exquisite wine from a golden goblet, looking like a literal boss of the underworld. The innkeeper internally complains. This suspicious traveler has been sitting there, scowling and monopolizing the entire floor for 3 hours. Because of Chris's dark S-rank passive aura, the atmosphere is so terrifying that no other customers dare to enter. The innkeeper stares at Chris's pale face, his heart beating with fear. He wonders if this terrifying man is actually the demon lord in disguise, preparing to reduce his tavern to ashes. Suddenly, footsteps approach the door. The wooden floorboards creak. The innkeeper plasters on a fake smile, welcoming the newcomers, and his eyes instantly freeze in pure, unadulterated shock. A majestic, tall man with flowing, light blue hair steps into the light, pulling down his hood. It is Duke Sheriff, Angelina's father. The innkeeper's voice squeaks, stammering the Duke's name in sheer terror. A cheerful woman with bright orange hair taps the Duke's shoulder, teasing him. It's Natasha Tot, Nika's mother, giving a smug grin as she notes that the Duke's beautiful face has left everyone completely speechless. Duke Sheriff sighs, telling her he didn't make any seductive advances. Natasha just laughs, saying he's fully aware of how good-looking he is. A young-looking, red-haired wizard with glasses cuts between them, complaining that getting rooms should be their priority. This is Henry Bright, Dolce's father. The innkeeper sighs in relief, thinking this red-haired kid is finally someone normal-looking. Henry pulls out 3 massive, glowing pink magic crystals, casually asking if they are enough to cover 3 rooms since he's been a recluse in the magic tower for 80 years. The innkeeper's soul literally leaves his body. 3 high-grade magic crystals can buy several entire taverns. And did this kid just say 80 years? Natasha's eyes suddenly go sharp. She notices the dark, thick, killing intent leaking from the dark corner. Footsteps approach. Chris walks out of the shadows. He draws his rusty sword in a flash, the steel catching the dim light of the tavern. But Natasha reacts instantly, turning around and catching his blade with her fingers, completely blocking the strike. She gives a cold, dangerous smile, telling him his bloodlust has been leaking the entire time. Duke Sheriff and Henry watch the clash calmly, while the poor innkeeper shivers behind the bar. Chris clenches his hand on the hilt, his S-rank passive aura flaring as he stands his ground. He holds the blade directly against Natasha's neck, his eyes filled with pure red malice. He delivers his ultimate roleplay threat: get lost, unless you want your head bashed in. Natasha doesn't flinch. She just gives a highly smug, dark grin. She whispers back, asking if perhaps his head will fall off first. The tension in the room is suffocating. The poor innkeeper collapses over his counter, crying that he's officially quitting the tavern business. Same, honestly, same. Our guy is currently standing in a dark tavern with a very sharp piece of steel pressed against his neck. And if you think he is leaking this massive, terrifying dark aura because he is preparing a god-tier counterspell, think again. He is sweating through his robes because he spent the last 10 minutes running from a literal cockroach. He was just trying to get a quick drink to numb the pain of his active death countdown when these high-level monsters walked through the door. At this point, throwing away his entire pride and begging the principal for his job back is looking like a solid tactical option. But then he looks up, and his internal panic meter hits absolute maximum. Standing right behind the lady with the sword is the chilling Knight Commander and the legendary Master of the Mage Tower. This isn't just a random encounter. The final bosses of the Parent-Teacher Association have officially arrived. It is a surprise parent observation day, and Chris is completely unprepared. He tries to pull off the ultimate background NPC move, shrinking into his seat, hoping they'll just assume he is a very dusty piece of tavern furniture. The problem with having an S-rank passive mana reservoir is that when you get incredibly stressed, your body starts leaking dark gravity, like a cracked nuclear reactor. To Natasha, this quiet guy sitting in the corner isn't a scared fraud. He looks like a high-level assassin, radiating pure, unfiltered bloodlust. She is the kingdom's most renowned knight, and if Chris blinks wrong, she is going to end his entire career right here. Meet Natasha Tot. She is incredibly playful, she has bright orange hair, and she can probably slice a mountain in half with a butter knife. She wants to know why our guy hasn't drawn his weapon yet. Chris looks down at the rusty sword on his belt. The system said this thing only has 3 charges of legendary creation magic, and he is absolutely not wasting one on a misunderstanding. He realizes that as long as he acts like drawing his weapon is beneath him, she might not actually strike. It is time to lock in the ultimate roleplay. He takes a slow, casual sip of his drink and remarks that this cheap-in wine is still significantly better than the garbage they serve in the Red Kingdom. Then he looks her dead in the eye and tells her that if he actually draws his blade, the resulting shockwave will blow this entire town off the map. And if that happens, he won't be able to enjoy this specific bottle next year, which would be a massive shame. The bartender in the background is literally crying because he thinks this legendary warrior is risking his life to protect his small business. Internally, Chris is praying she doesn't call his bluff, because if she does, his F-rank physical defense is going to get him sent back to the character selection screen. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut, and then Natasha just bursts out laughing. She completely buys the act. She thinks a man who worries about the quality of his wine while a legendary sword is at his throat is the coolest person she has ever met. She slides her blade back into its sheath and formally introduces herself as the Scarlet Knight. Chris doesn't break character for a second, coldly telling her that a true knight who can't even pay attention to her surroundings is a massive embarrassment to her order. Instead of getting angry, Natasha is absolutely charmed. She slams her hand down and orders every single bottle of wine the tavern has in stock as a formal apology. Then she waves over the blue-haired Duke and the red-haired Mage Tower Master to join them. The Duke looks like he would rather be literally anywhere else, immediately ordering a glass of water to avoid the social interaction. Chris realizes his quiet night in is officially turning into an all-nighter with the most dangerous people on the continent, and there is absolutely no escape. The next morning, different room, same massive mistake. Our guy is currently face down on his bed, experiencing the kind of legendary hangover that makes you want to negotiate with the gods for a quick exit. He somehow managed to survive the drinking session without breaking his cool master persona, but the victory is short-lived. Natasha knocks on his door and cheerfully tells him it is time to head to the academy. She is practically glowing, holding a bottle of wine, while the ice-cold Duke Sheriff sits next to her, looking like a hostage. Apparently, the legendary Duke has such severe social anxiety that he insisted on arriving at the academy hours before anyone else just to avoid making eye contact with the commoners. Chris knows that is a total lie. These people didn't travel halfway across the continent just to watch a standard parent-teacher conference. They came because of Michael. The rumor that a student went full demon, shattered the academy security, and swatted a master like a fly has already spread to the highest offices of the kingdom. Parent observation day is just a very convenient excuse for them to inspect the monster with their own eyes. Chris meets them outside, trying his best to look like an untouchable genius instead of a man who is currently vibrating from sleep deprivation. Natasha looks at his pale face and immediately gets worried, grabbing his arm and offering to let him lean on her if he feels dizzy. Chris is thoroughly confused. He starts wondering if his acting was so good that she actually thinks he is a frail, tragic sage suffering from some ancient curse. Before he can figure it out, the other parents join in, and suddenly our S-rank legend is being physically escorted like a toddler crossing a busy street. The rain starts pouring down as they approach the main gates. Natasha is happily chatting away, completely oblivious to the sheer awkwardness of the situation. Suddenly, Chris stops. He hears something, the heavy sound of footsteps rushing through the mud. A group of dark figures is sprinting directly toward them through the rain. Chris tries to step forward to get a better look, but his F-rank coordination betrays him, and he slips on a wet stone. Natasha instantly catches him, asking if he needs her to carry him bridal style. Before he can reply, a familiar voice screams through the storm. It is Nika, but Natasha doesn't recognize her own son in the dark. She assumes this is a coordinated assassination attempt, draws her blade, and unleashes a blinding flash of high-level light magic. The air splits as her sword descends, moving fast enough to kill. But steel meets steel with a massive ring. Nika slides in, blocking his own mother's lethal strike with a wooden training sword. Natasha is genuinely shocked that a kid from the academy actually had the reflexes to stop her blade. Nika looks up, sweating, and asks his mother why on earth she is trying to kidnap his favorite professor. The rest of Class X materializes out of the rain. Angelina, Dolce, and Belle are all standing there, completely drenched. Chris looks at them and realizes they didn't use the main gate. These noble kids literally scaled the high security walls of the academy in the middle of a rainstorm. He lets out a long, exhausted sigh. He crosses his arms, drops his voice into his signature cold tone, and demands a highly detailed explanation for this absolute circus. Michael steps forward, looking like a puppy that just got caught chewing on an expensive shoe. Hashtag Chapter 12. Michael is trembling, looking down at the mud while the rain pours over his face. He explains that when they heard Chris was placed on leave, they assumed assumed he had abandoned them forever because they were too weak to protect his honor during the joint match. That is why they broke every rule in the handbook to find him. Chris is internally screaming. He cannot believe he is listening to this level of tragic anime dialogue from a bunch of high-ranking nobles. He tells them to get to the point, trying to hide the fact that he is actually touched that they care this much. They all bow their heads together. They ask him to please come back and be their official professor again. Chris stares at them. He genuinely does not understand these kids. He has spent his entire teaching career sleeping in class, calling them trash, and giving them self-study worksheets. Somehow, this has made them completely obsessed with him. But as he looks at their determined faces, something shifts. He realizes that even without the threat of the system's instant death penalty, he actually wants to see these weird kids succeed. He lets out a quiet breath, rubs his neck, and tells them they're all going to be a massive amount of trouble for him. And just like that, the rain doesn't seem so cold anymore. The kids light up like they just won a war, and they head back to the academy together. Chris thinks to himself that maybe, just this once, things are actually going to go smoothly. He was right. Back at the administration building, the parents are absolutely tearing into the principal. Natasha is leaning over the desk, demanding to know what kind of incompetent substitute teacher they hired that made the previous one want to take a sudden leave of absence. The cold Duke Seraph adds that Chris is the only educator on the entire continent who is actually on his family's level. When 3 of the most powerful people in the kingdom threaten to pull their funding, the academy administration folds instantly. And that is how Chris gets his job back in record time, entirely thanks to the aggressive lobbying of a group of highly overprotective parents. But his victory is short-lived. He is back at the podium, staring at his students, and he still has absolutely no idea how to teach active magic, since his system has it completely locked. He pulls his classic move, writing independent study on the board, and hoping for the best. The parents, who are watching from the back of the room, are completely awestruck. They stroke their chins and whisper that this lazy silence is actually a highly advanced Eastern meditation technique designed to align their mana channels. The author of this story is truly writing whatever is most convenient. Chris glances over at them, keeping his face perfectly still while his brain is doing calculations. But as he scans the room, he notices a real problem. Angelina is sitting at her desk, and her hand is shaking so hard she can barely hold her quill, and the cause of her terror is sitting right behind her, yawning. Duke Seraph is staring at the back of her head with a look that could freeze water. With a trembling voice, Angelina raises her hand and asks if she can be excused to go to the bathroom. Chris nods calmly. She rises, but her legs look like wet paper. She staggers out of the room, clutching her chest like she is about to throw up from sheer anxiety. Michael watches her leave, clearly worried about his classmate, but he doesn't dare speak up with the Duke sitting right there. The Duke looks at the doorway and remarks, very coldly, that his daughter isn't normally this weak. There is a dark, heavy pressure radiating from him. He looks at Angelina like she is a failing asset rather than his child. Chris decided he has seen enough. He stands up from his desk. He figures she is probably heading back to her favorite secret smoking spot behind the building to cope with the immense pressure. He decides to follow her, stepping down from the platform. Natasha calls out to him, asking if he is really going to leave his honored guests behind in the middle of a lesson. Chris doesn't even turn around, coldly declaring that today's class is officially over and they should all leave. The parents are completely fine with this, casually deciding to go grab another drink since their favorite professor is clearly too cool for school. Chris walks through the quiet hallways of the academy. He hears soft crying coming from a dusty, unused room near the back of the building. He peers through the crack in the door. She didn't go to smoke. She is hiding in a dark, empty classroom, curled up on the floor. Suddenly, the system screen flashes open with a loud chime. The parent observation quest is officially cleared, and he's given 3 reward options: a sturdy shield, a very suspicious succubus item, or a highly fashionable dashing cloak. He taps the screen, choosing the cloak because it fits his dark master aesthetic perfectly, but he immediately dismisses the window. He has much more important things to deal with right now. He pushes the heavy wooden door open, stepping into the dusty light. Angelina is sobbing, her face buried in her hands. Chris looks down at her and speaks a name that has not been uttered in this academy, Andante Seraph. The blue-haired girl jolts like she just got hit by lightning, her eyes widening in absolute horror. She stammers, asking how on earth he knows that name. Chris looks at her, keeping his face perfectly blank, but internally, he is remembering the lore of the original web novel he used to read. Here is the massive plot twist that absolutely broke the internet when the novel was being published. The comment section went completely wild, with half the readers calling it lazy writing and the other half absolutely loving the drama. The haughty ice princess, Angelina Seraph, is actually a boy named Andante. He was an illegitimate child of the Duke's family, with very average magic talent, completely ignored in favor of his highly gifted younger sister, the real Angelina. But one day, the real Angelina disappeared without a trace. To keep his family's perfect reputation and maintain his political influence, Duke Seraph needed a replacement immediately. He chose Andante because of his strong physical resemblance to his sister, subjecting him to years of brutal brainwashing and painful magic. His physical growth was forcibly stunted with dark spells to keep his body looking feminine, leaving him in constant physical pain and suffering from severe anxiety. He has spent his entire life playing a character just to avoid being disposed of, and Dante starts crying, the tears streaming down his face. He warned Chris that if his father finds out that anyone knows this secret, Chris will disappear forever, just like the real Angelina did. He grabs Chris's cloak, begging him to stay quiet because he doesn't want to lose his favorite professor. Chris looks down at him, his red eyes narrowing. He asks the boy if he genuinely thinks his teacher is the kind of person who can be easily messed with by a simple Duke. Internally, Chris's gamer brain is going wild. This isn't just a tragedy, it is the ultimate survival opportunity. The Seraph family is incredibly powerful and completely neutral in the war between the Empire and the Demon King. If he can get Andante on his side, he secures a massive insurance policy for his own survival. A dark smirk creeps onto his face. He tells Andante that if he wants his help, he needs to do one thing: lead Class X to absolute victory in the upcoming Academy tournament. He needs Andante to be completely indebted to him. In return, Chris promises that he will use his legendary knowledge to find the real sister and free Andante from this living nightmare once and for all. And right on cue, the system window slams open with a new main quest: lead Class X to victory in the midterms tournament within 14 days, or become a cold corpse. The stakes have never been higher, and the game has officially begun. The midterm exam at Betaloo Academy is basically a brutal, high-stakes school tournament. The winning class walks away with a massive golden trophy holding the Eye of Flame, a legendary red mana stone. Our guy needs that stone. If he wants to find the real Angelina and secure his ultimate safety card against the Duke, there is no other way. Winning should have been an easy task for an S-rank master, but there is always a catch. Chris gathers his small elite squad to drop the terrible news. This year's tournament has a major twist. Grade level separations are completely gone. He acts like this is all part of his grandmaster plan, but internally he is sweating. He already made a massive, highly public promise to Duke Seraph to win the entire thing. And Dante stares at him with deep, intense blue eyes, asking if he can genuinely trust a teacher who seems to know his family's darkest secrets. The silent tension stretching between them is incredibly heavy. Chris just lets out a slow, knowing smirk. He tells the kid he always means exactly what he says. In reality, his face is going pale because he only agreed to the deal thinking they would be fighting other first years. Class X is strong, but facing the senior upperclassmen is a different level of dangerous. Michael, Nika, and Andante look completely terrified. They are confident in their own progress, but seniors are seasoned warriors. Still, seeing their master so calm gives them a sudden wave of determination. Andante clenches his fists, a literal fire of resolve igniting in his eyes as he vows to lead the class to absolute victory. Chris is glad the kid is motivated, but he has to figure out how to bridge a massive power gap in less than 2 weeks. On top of that, he notices something highly unusual. The classroom is surprisingly quiet. Nika is panicking because his own older brothers are seniors in the tournaments, and they are absolute beasts. But Dolce, who usually has a smug, sarcastic comment for every situation, is sitting in the corner with a completely hollow expression. Nika tries to break the tension by mentioning a creepy rumor about a ghost wandering the academy grounds. The class tells him to shut up because he is giving them the creeps, but Chris's gamer brain instantly clicks. He looks at the red-haired girl. The ghost stories Nika is talking about are not a myth. Something tragic happened to the Bright family twins. A few days later, the training grounds are filled with the sound of cold wind and clashing practice swords. Nika drops to his knees, completely exhausted, begging Andante for a quick break. Andante tells him to get up because they are nowhere near their goal. Nika points out that even Dolce has skipped practice for the past few days because the training is too brutal. Chris watches from the side. He knows Dolce isn't slacking off because she is tired. Something is very wrong. The tournament requires a roster of 7 people, and Class X is already shorthanded. If their primary water mage goes missing, they are completely cooked. He pulls up the academy map. A tiny purple marker is slowly moving around the school gardens, wandering aimlessly. She is searching for something she lost. The rain begins to fall. Heavy drops hitting the leaves of the quiet garden. Deep in the trees, Dolce is crying, her voice cracking as she calls out a name into the cold air. Chris watches silently from behind a thick tree trunk. He knows the lore of this world. Her twin sister, Gabbana Bright, is gone. Dolce and Gabbana were the celebrated twin prodigies of the Bright magic family. 5 years ago, Gabbana passed away in a tragic accident, but her soul was bound to Dolce as a lingering ghost. Now, Dolce is on her knees in the wet grass, completely broken. Chris realizes he needs to handle this personal crisis before his entire tournament plan falls apart. He steps out of the shadows, calling her name. Dolce flinches, her eyes wide with shock. She wipes her tears, trying to force her usual smug smile, asking if her favorite professor actually came looking for her because he missed her in class. Chris doesn't play along with her joke. He looks at her coldly, telling her not to make him laugh. He drops a bombshell, asking her exactly where she lost Gabbana Bright's soulstone. Dolce's smug mask completely shatters, leaving her in stunned silence. She looks at him like he is a god, completely amazed that he was able to sense the faint spiritual energy of a hidden soulstone. Sensing the energy? Not even close. Our guy just remembers the chapters of the original novel where she cried in the protagonist's arms and explained her entire tragic backstory. Before Gabbana died, Dolce trapped her soul inside a high-quality mana crystal. Because of that, Gabbana remained by her side, but she was only visible to the person holding the stone. But now, the stone is gone. Dolce woke up, and her sister was simply missing. She has searched every corner of the academy, but there is no sign of it. Without the stone's resonance, her water magic is cut completely in half. Chris wants to tell her to go rest, but the tournament clock is ticking. He turns around, telling her to follow him. He looks back at his map. Right next to her purple dot, a bright red hostile marker is slowly flickering on the parchment. The fact that the soulstone disappeared from her room and ended up out here means only one thing. Some unfortunate monster crawled onto campus and swallowed the highly concentrated magic stone. And Chris is going to turn this cleanup mission into a very practical training lesson for his students. The heavy rain continues to pour as they walk through the dense forest. Chris leads the class to the edge of a quiet garden pond. Nika looks around, complaining that the atmosphere is incredibly ominous. Suddenly, Dolce freezes, her face turning completely pale as she senses a massive wave of familiar magic. The water in the center of the pond begins to bubble and boil violently. Chris coldly commands his students to draw their weapons and prepare for a fight. With a massive splash, a towering, green, scaly lizard beast bursts out of the water, its jaws lined with razor-sharp teeth. The monster spits a glob of dark purple fluid, and the rocks where it lands instantly melt and sizzle from the high-grade acid. And Dante quickly takes command, ordering Nika to cast a defensive barrier and Belle to prepare agility buffs while they plan a ranged assault. But Dolce just stands there, paralyzed. Chris looks at her. The heavy rain is the absolute perfect environment for her high-level water magic, but she is too terrified to move. He steps up beside her, dropping his voice to a chilling tone, asking Dolce Bright if she has completely lost her nerve. He recalls her regular smug confidence from the previous matches. Where did all of that energy go? The lizard beast roars, and through the distorted reptilian screech, a faint human voice calls out Dolce's name. Dolce's heart drops like a stone. The beast didn't just swallow the crystal. Her sister's spirit is actively possessing the monster's core. To save her sister's soul, she has to destroy the beast. Hashtag chapter 14. In the original story, Dolce was always carrying a massive amount of hidden trauma. Because Gabbana existed as a spirit, the conservative mages of the magic tower constantly whispered that she was an undead abomination that would eventually turn into a monster. High-level researchers even tried to steal the soulstone to study it, forcing the twins to flee and take refuge at the academy. Chris looks at the crying girl. The rumors from the magic tower weren't entirely wrong, but they missed the core truth. He looks her dead in the eye and tells her that the green lizard beast in front of them is absolutely not her sister. Dolce gasps, her eyes wide with shock. Chris explains, very simply, that her sister is human and can cast human magic. A mindless, acid-spatting lizard beast is nothing but a wild animal. Dolce lets out a wet, genuine laugh through her tears. She tells him he is seriously awful for delivering such blunt logic at a time like this, but her eyes are suddenly clear. She turns to her classmates, apologizing for dragging them into her family mess, and promises to repay the favor. She raises her hands, and the falling rain instantly gathers into a massive, swirling vortex of high-velocity water currents. Chris smiles internally as the storm clears. With Dolce's resolve fully restored, their chances in the upcoming tournament just skyrocketed. The next morning, the sky is bright and blue over Betalua Academy. Chris is lying on his comfortable office sofa, feeling pretty good about the situation. The kids had a rough time taking down the acid-spatting beast, but they managed to pull off a flawless victory. But Chris is still cautious. A random garden monster carrying refined, high-grade magic stones doesn't make sense. He suspects that creepy, bandaged officer from the Demon Lord's army is already making moves behind the scenes. Still, a win is a win. He quickly swiped those refined stones from the monster's carcass and shared them with the class to give their stats a nice permanent boost. But they can't afford to relax. While Nika's brothers are manageable, the real threat of the tournament lies in the second-year class, specifically a student named Ryan. In the original story, Ryan is a notorious second-year problem child who constantly skips class. Suddenly, the door to Class X is violently kicked open. A kid with messy purple hair and a dramatic dark eye patch stands in the doorway, loudly challenging the class to a high-stakes match. Chris is staring at him, wondering how a single person can embody this much cringe. Ryan points a finger at Chris, calling him the leader of the new generation cloaked in the winds of chaos. He wants to challenge them to a match right now, wagering their tournament entry badges. The Class X students are completely unimpressed, telling Chris he shouldn't waste his breath on a second year who probably just came to spy on their strategies. Ryan instantly loses his composure, stuttering and complaining that they are being incredibly disrespectful to an upperclassman. Chris doesn't say a word, simply raising a single finger. Ryan takes a step back, sweating, assuming this silent gesture is some legendary mind control spell designed to suppress his movements. His passive S-rank aura is doing some heavy lifting here. The purple-haired kid decides to slowly back away, claiming he will graciously let them slide just this once. But before he can escape, Chris speaks a single word, respect. He tells him to use proper, respectful language when addressing a teacher. He leans in close, his red eyes glowing in the shadow, asking this wannabe thug if he really thinks he is the strongest student in the academy. Ryan's face goes completely red. Chris smiles internally. In the novel, Ryan is a classic character type who is incredibly weak to anyone who acts cooler than him. Ryan bites his lip, claiming his legendary Emperor eyes can see through any cheap bluffing. Chris decides it is the perfect time to test out his new system reward, the super popular guy's cake. He equips the item, and a massive, blinding golden light suddenly floods the entire classroom. The system confirms the activation of Illusion of Radiant Light, generating a glorious, sparkly halo around Chris. Ryan's jaw drops as he is hit by the pure, unadulterated power of maximum handsome energy. The golden light is so intense, it is literally consuming 100 mana points per second. Ryan covers his eyes, screaming in agony, as his brain is completely short-circuited by the sheer sparkling majesty of his teacher. Chris walks forward through the light and delivers a gentle, deadpan flick directly to the kid's forehead. He tells him to quit acting tough and go home. Ryan stands there, his face completely flushed, clutching his forehead in absolute defeat. Chris is pretty happy with the result, even if the method was slightly embarrassing. Ryan turns and runs down the hallway, screaming that next time, Chris had better watch his progress for real. Our guy lets out a sigh, but then a terrible thought hits him. Did his dramatic performance just accidentally give the rival the exact motivation he needs to unlock his true power? He decides to put that worry aside, walking down the quiet main corridor of the academy. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him from behind. It is Eugene. The green-haired, smiling homeroom teacher of Class Y. Eugene laughs, explaining that Ryan was his homeroom student last year and drove him absolutely crazy by never listening to a single word he said. He cheerfully offers to exchange information about their respective students over a nice, quiet dinner. Chris doesn't even hesitate, delivering a flat refusal. Eugene doesn't seem bothered, smiling as he shoves a neatly wrapped pink bento box into Chris's hands instead. He claims it is just a small token of his feelings. Chris stares at the box with deep, intense suspicion. He knows Eugene is a spy for the principal. Since Chris chose the neutral faction path, there is a very high chance this bento is packed with high-grade poison. He tries to hand it back, but Eugene simply chuckles, claiming he worked incredibly hard to prepare it and would never put anything weird inside. Chris walks away, holding the suspicious lunchbox, trying to focus on his main goal of winning the tournament quickly. Eugene watches him go, his gentle smile fading slightly as he asks if something is troubling his favorite colleague. He remarks that whenever he is feeling overwhelmed by difficult thoughts, he prefers to spend some quiet time alone in a hidden, peaceful place. Chris stops. The advice sounds simple, but the way Eugene is looking at him makes it feel like he is speaking directly to the transmigrated soul inside, not the character of Chris. Eugene turns around, offering to share his ultimate secret base with him. He tells Chris to simply follow the map, promising that absolutely nobody will be able to disturb him there. It is the old campus dormitory, a structure that was shut down and abandoned years ago. Chris walks away, his mind racing. Why is a green-haired spy pointing him toward that specific location? He realizes that in the lore of the original web novel, that abandoned building isn't just a dusty ruin. It is a high-level high-level dungeon filled with hidden treasures and ancient sleeping monsters. Could this smiling spy actually be trying to help him grow stronger, or is he walking straight into a deadly trap? We are going to find out, but for now, the timer is ticking. Even the original protagonist, Michael, was brutally turned away at the gates because he had forgotten his crushing defeat at the hands of the Demon King. Chris stands before the towering Gothic gates, realizing that this hidden area only ever appeared in the novel during quick flashbacks. He gets a sudden chill down his spine as he remembers Eugene's smug, smiling face. The green-haired spy knew exactly what this place was, and even gave him a map to bypass the security. Chris wonders if Eugene is actually another transmigrator or someone directly connected to the system. He takes a slow, deep breath to steady his racing thoughts. When he asked Eugene about it earlier, the man just laughed it off, telling him to call him whenever he felt lonely. He's a smooth-talking snake, and Chris needs to step back and reevaluate his entire strategy. He looks up at the looming shadow of the old dormitory. He really didn't want to risk exploring an untested dungeon, but a highly overpowered senior class has just teamed up with the second-year ace. Class X is guaranteed to get destroyed in the tournament unless our guy can pull a massive cheat code out of his sleeve. He presses his palm against the heavy wooden door, and it slowly swings open. A blinding flash of cold, blue light fills his vision. He steps through the portal, wondering if this empty, pristine hallway is really the inside of the legendary dungeon. The area is completely silent. He takes a few cautious steps forward, looking for any hidden traps or high-level monsters. Suddenly, a high-pitched, squeaky voice echoes through the empty corridor, calling him my child. Chris turns around and spots a massive, plush monkey floating in the air. The toy is bouncing up and down, claiming it has been waiting for him and making weird monkey noises. Chris's brain short circuits as he realizes this floating mascot looks exactly like the cheap monkey keychain he got as a quest reward on day 1. He holds up his hands, telling the floating stuffed animal to calm down and explain its existence immediately. The mascot strikes a dramatic pose, announcing that it is the official supporter sent by the Earth God. As it speaks, several words are heavily pixelated and blocked out by the system. Chris glares at the creature, wondering if this buggy mascot is the reason his life has been a non-stop series of near-death experiences. The monkey claims this kind of meeting with the supreme being happens all the time in standard fantasy novels, but Chris has no time for its meta jokes. It coughs into its fist, explaining that the Earth God is currently facing some technical difficulties and cannot reveal the full truth. Chris tries to listen, but the keywords are completely muted by static. The monkey explains that it had to use a massive system loophole just to manifest in this dungeon, and asks Chris if he feels his current character build is lacking. It floats closer to his face, offering to use another loophole to grant him a single, powerful wish. Our guy slumps his shoulders, realizing he basically just met a very sketchy genie. His eyes light up with pure greed as he asks the monkey to unlock his spellcasting and let him use high-level magic. The monkey deadpans, explaining that since his soul is flagged as an illegal player, bypassing the magic lock is completely impossible. Chris groans, asking if it can at least raise his physical strength stats so he isn't as fragile as wet cardboard. The monkey sweats, saying that stat modifications are also blocked by the system's firewall. Chris glares at him, his passive S-rank dark aura flaring up in frustration as he asks what the point of a mascot even is. He calms down, asking if the monkey can at least give him a high-grade item to help Class X win the midterm tournament. The monkey matches his smug grin, realizing this will allow them to clear the current main quest easily. Chris tells the mascot to give him something durable that can be utilized for a very long time. The plush monkey begins to glow with a blinding golden light. Chris covers his eyes, praying that this system reward doesn't carry some ridiculous game-ruining curse like the last one. He winces as the magical energy surges around him, hoping this secret dungeon trip was actually worth the stress. Suddenly, his red eyes widen in realization. Before the monkey disappears, Chris lunges forward, asking if the mascot knows who Professor Eugene really is. The monkey's face is illuminated by the fading light as it processes the query. It answers that a character named Eugene does not exist in any chapter of the original novel. The strongest Demon King hero raises hell. Chris is left frozen in absolute shock as the world around him begins to dissolve. The scene suddenly glitters and shifts. With a massive wave of sound, Chris finds himself standing in the center of a crowded arena. Class X is holding a massive golden trophy, and confetti is raining down as the crowd cheers for their victory. A blue system window chimes in his face, confirming that the midterm quest has been completed and rewarding him with one lucky chance. Our guy clutches his head in absolute fury, realizing the buggy monkey mascot's wish literally fast-forwarded the entire timeline past the tournament directly to the victory screen. He didn't even get to watch his students fight. He gets actual goosebumps, realizing how unstable and broken this system is. Michael walks up with a proud smile, handing him the massive golden trophy and stating they wanted to give their master the ultimate honor. Chris swallows his panic. He looks at the trophy and is relieved to see the glowing red eye of flame mana stone safely embedded in the center. He grips the cold metal handles of the cup. He raises the trophy high into the air, letting out a loud cheer to play along with the screaming stadium crowd. He lowers his voice, telling his students not to get too cocky because of a single win. And Dante rubs his head, looking completely confused as he mentions he has absolutely no memory of how they even won the matches this week. Chris sweats, realizing the fast forward literally wiped his students' memories of his skipped battles. He tells them he is leaving, walking away before they start asking any more logical questions. The kids call after him, asking if he wants to celebrate, but Chris is already walking toward the exit. Suddenly, a new system quest window slams open. The Earth God's request phase 3 has begun. Defeat the boss monster with the students. The screen doesn't even list a specific location, but Chris knows the lore. The boss monster holding the real Angelina hostage is the Snow Queen, residing deep in the Kingdom of Frost. He steps down the stone stairs, his mind returning to the mystery of the green-haired teacher. If Eugene isn't a character from the novel, who is he? Is he another transmigrator who died on Earth, or is he something much worse? He clenches his fist, telling himself to focus on the immediate raid. The kidnapper of the real Angelina is the Snow Queen. Despite her elegant name, she isn't some beautiful ice goddess. She is a horrific, giant flying insectoid boss that drains the life force and mana out of frozen hosts, and Chris needs to prepare his students for a very messy fight. Chapter 16. The carriage wheels crunch softly over the thick layer of snow as they approach the frozen, jagged mountains. Chris leans back against the plush leather seats of Duke Seraph's luxurious carriage, noting that the ride is exceptionally smooth. He glances toward the other corner of the carriage, his red eyes narrowing in annoyance. Ryan, the purple-haired second-year Tunabue, is striking dramatic poses, claiming his Emperor's Eye is tingling as Michael and Andante groan in exhaustion next to him. After losing the tournament, Ryan literally spent days begging Chris to let him join Class X's next mission, and Chris finally allowed him to tag along because the kid actually possesses high-level combat skills. Chris looks at the glowing red eye of flame mana stone in his hand, which acts as the physical key to enter the frozen realm, and Dante looks at him nervously, asking if everything will really be okay if they just follow the strategy. Michael smiles warmly, patting Andante's shoulder and telling her that the professor has never led them astray. Chris watches the interaction, thinking that if he didn't know Andante was actually a boy in disguise, he would be highly impressed by Michael's natural main character romance skills. Ryan leans over, teasingly suggesting they give the young couple some space. Chris internally sighs, remembering that the girl Michael is flirting with is currently binding his chest with magic. The carriage stops, and the group steps out onto the freezing, windswept stone ledge. Before them stands the massive, towering ice gates of the Kingdom of Frost. In the original novel, this dungeon was a total nightmare because the protagonist had to fight both the Snow Queen and a massive ambush from the Demon King's forces. But today, they only have to deal with the giant insect. Chris has already explained the boss's attack patterns to his students, giving them a massive tactical advantage. He raises the red mana stone, and a bright flash of crimson light shatters the seal, granting them entry to the shards of the false mirror. Suddenly, a high-pitched buzzing sound echoes through the cavern, and a massive, white-winged mosquito-like creature with crystalline legs descends from the ceiling. Chris commands his students to draw their weapons and prepare for a fast, coordinated assault. But the room remains completely silent. Chris turns around, his red eyes widening in surprise, and Dante, Michael, Nika, and Ryan are all on their knees, clutching their heads in agony and sobbing as they mutter about their deepest, darkest childhood regrets. He realizes the Snow Queen didn't wait to attack. She immediately unleashed her signature psychic nightmare illusion, trapping everyone's minds in their own worst memories. Because Chris's S-rank transmigrated soul is locked and immune to mental magic, he is completely fine, but his F-rank physical stats mean he cannot fight this giant bug alone. He needs a high-level magic user immediately. He clenches his fist, realizing who he has to wake up first. He runs over to where Dolce is lying unconscious, quickly searching her pockets. He grips the cold yellow crystal soulstone and pulls it out. A faint, shimmering light flashes, and the spectral figure of Gabbana Bright manifests in the cold air. Gabbana looks at him calmly. Chris quickly asks her to confirm if her specialty is high-voltage electric magic. She nods silently. Chris glances at his knockout students. To break a high-level psychic illusion, he needs to deliver a sharp, physical jolt to someone who can handle the impact. He tells her to shock one of his students immediately. He points a finger at Belle, the gentle, timid blonde healer, lying face down in the snow. According to the original novel, you should always be extremely cautious around characters who act overly sweet and vulnerable. Gabbana releases a sharp bolt of yellow lightning, and Belle lets out a loud scream as the current courses through her body. Belle sits up, rubbing her head in confusion, and suddenly, A pair of fluffy wolf ears and a bushy tail pop out from her hood. Chris tells her she should probably hide those ears and tail before the others wake up. Belle gasps, quickly covering her head in embarrassment. Healers in this world are actually half-breed werewolves, an ancestral race bred for absolute physical brutality and combat force. But because of their dark history, they despise violence and became obsessively kind, making them the ultimate secret weapon in a crisis. Chris commands her to use her physical purity to dispel the psychic magic on the others. She nods, preparing her magic, while Chris hears a sharp buzzing sound coming from the ice altar. The giant mosquito monster lands on a massive block of translucent ice. Inside the ice block lies a young girl with long, pale blue hair. It is the real Angelina, and the monster is actively draining her mana. Chris grits his teeth, realizing he has to destroy the beast before it finishes absorbing her life force. He turns to Belle, asking if she has finished waking up the team. Belle is currently channeling her holy light into Michael, but the young protagonist is thrashing in the snow, groaning in deep physical agony. His mind is trapped in a horrific demonic nightmare of his past. Chris looks down at him. Out of everyone in Class X, the protagonist carries the darkest, most volatile trauma. If Michael goes full demon and loses control in this narrow ice cavern, it will be a complete disaster. But they desperately need his raw offensive power to break the monster's shell. Chris looks at Belle and commands her to prepare a high-level mind link spell. He is going to dive into Michael's mind and pull him out himself. Belle gasps, warning him that if anything goes wrong during a psychic dive, Chris's mind could be permanently shattered or trapped inside the nightmare forever. Chris puts on his coolest, most heroic expression, reminding her that they are still in training and he is their professor. He tells her that a true leader must always take absolute responsibility for his disciples. He tells her he trusts her ability to pull him out if the nightmare gets too dangerous. Belle is deeply moved, her eyes shining with determination as she vows to manage the spell perfectly. Chris lets out a slow smirk, running his fingers through his dark hair as a magical connection begins to hum. It is time to dive into the protagonist's mind and manually lower the difficulty of this boss fight. Our guy is officially diving into the deepest, darkest corner of Michael's mind, and even without the system warnings flashing in his face, he can tell this mental lobby is completely broken. This is the burnt out village where Michael grew up, back when his father, the literal Demon King, decided to play the worst parent of the year award by taking out his human mother. The trauma here is so thick you could slice it, and Chris immediately spots the elm tree from the original novel's tragic flashback. He steps into the burning ruins of the house and finds a young, crying Michael clutching his dying mother in the ashes. It is a heavy, painful memory that has kept this kid emotionally